Man these shields, boys! Remember this day, men, for it will be yours for all time.
Welcome to the night zone, hear the warriors speak. Life's the battlefield and we ain't feeling weak. From love to the game and the power we seek. Got a voice, a strong breaking every peak. Talk of love and battle scars, everything that's real. From touchdown to sermon, you know the deal. Strength in every word we begin to reveal. Truth in every tale as our lives we unveil. Talk of love and battle scars, everything that's real. From touchdown to sermon, you know the deal. Strength in every word we begin to reveal. Truth in every tale as our lives we unveil. Protect and provide, we're knights in the fray. Nothing off limits, we got something to say. Life and love, fitness and fight all day. Guys Night Podcast, let's ride the wave. Politics and prayers, ain't no subject we shun. Keep it real, keep it raw till the battle's won. Fitness tips to faith, every topic under the sun. With honor and valor, every man's battle begun. Warriors with words, swords through the air. Every point sharp and every talk fair. Knights at the round table, come and pull up a chair. Join the brotherhood, words laid bare. Protect and provide, we're knights in the fray. Nothing off limits, we got something to say. Life and love, fitness and fight all day. Guys Night Podcast, let's ride the wave. Warriors with words, swords through the air. Every point sharp and every talk fair. Knights at the round table, come and pull up
Have you seen
a
the ones
chair.
where they
Join
said
the
that's why all of Hollywood's burning is to get rid of all the Diddy?
Oh my gosh.
No, I
dude,
did
that's
not hear
fucking
that.
hilarious.
There's so much of it they don't know where it's all at. You gotta
Just burn it all.
Yeah, you gotta burn it all.
Well, I was watching the news and that. Okay, what's the guy's name that killed that CEO of the
Luigi.
Yeah, supposedly he's doing better than Diddy. Diddy had a freak out multiple times in the jail.
Oh, serious?
Yeah, I had
It's
like
getting more attention.
Yeah.
than
Oh
Diddy.
my god.
he's
dude,
like,
that's
I'm rich
fucking-
and famous, and I'm like,
Yeah, and everybody thinks he's kind of got a positive agenda, like taking out the leaders of the fucking corrupt free world.
I was like,
Modern day Robin Hood.
yeah, very much so.
Hold on, maybe we should start it off with this. Let me see that real quick.
Yeah.
I
I'm doing
mean, if
that.
you ever wanted somebody to watch your fucking show, it'd be fucking Mr. Beast. If you're watching this, you're gonna think this is fucking fake. And spoiler alert. And they have to select a leader, and that leader has to go up on this big stage or whatever and turn down whatever amount of money they offer him. He can accept it. He gets to stay in the game, but everybody in this row is eliminated. It gets up to $1 million fucking dollars, and these people are not hitting the button. And I'm like, are you guys fucking? You're playing in a game that the max payout is $5 million.
I would.
Why would you not take your $1 million and say fuck all those people? He even says like part of it's because like these people are on TV and like this is how people are gonna think of you. But me, I'm like, $1 million fucking dollars. What else are you here for? You're not here to make friends. It's like, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Guys Night Podcast. I am your host, Will McEwen. I am here as always with Evan,
Hello, how's everybody doing?
David,
What's up, everybody?
and we have a returning guest, Austin Mims. Welcome back, brother.
Good evening, gentlemen.
So we got a lot going on, and just everything that's going on in the world right now. We talked about, a lot of people are trying to figure out what to do with their money. We just talked about, Mr. Beaston winning millions and millions of dollars in taxes and all that other stuff. But I think there's a lot of unknowns when it comes to the investment world that men all over the world should learn about.
Well, I have a little thing. Does anybody have financial goals this year? Because it's the beginning of the new year, so does everybody have any financial goals to hit this year?
Oh.
Investments, anything to buy, purchase?
Financial goals
Goals.
as far as investing or
Investing,
income,
buying.
I did not put a goal on that this year.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, Evan, since you bring the topic up, what are your financial and investing goals for 2025?
I have always two of them. I have an Roth. I always like to grow my Roth, And I have an HSA also with my company. I always like to try to grow that too.
Is that a HSA? Is that health savings account?
I grow it, but it always gets a lot of times depleted or close to it every year, even if I try to grow into it.
Yeah.
Because the diabetes kills it.
So do you
every
max
year.
out your Roth every year?
Yeah, every year, and I sometimes get little, what's it called, at the end of the year when you do your taxes. I kind of get little, what's it called, red flags because I put too much money into it every year.
I'll be interested to hear us talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
But obviously that's one goal, and I just began investing, so we'll talk about that too. Because two interesting facts that I looked up before having you on tonight, Austin. I wanted to have something. The average woman starts investing at like 32. The average man's like 36. So women start investing sooner. Higher percentage of women invest. No, I'm sorry. Higher percentage of men invest, over 60%. But I was surprised at the fact that men start so much later, and the average age is like 36 or something like that. So let's talk about that. What's the first thing? Like, what do you usually see when somebody's coming into it for the first time? Like, what are the things that they're thinking about? Are they long-term, short-term goals? What are some of the, let's get into it right off the bat.
Usually when I have someone, well, it's either estate money inheritance, and that's pulling them in, or they're planners, and you start saving, and then for everyone there's like a break point where all of a sudden it's like, I've got a lot of money, and it could be $10,000, it could be $1 million, but it's kind of the turning point where they're like, oh, I don't want to be in charge of this anymore, or I need another set of eyes to verify that I'm doing the right thing.
Sure.
And I mean, there's a ton of people that I'll never see that just feel confident managing their money on their own all the way through. And you can, I tell people all the time, if you want to take the time, buy the tools, break a couple things, it's not rocket science. Anyone can do it. You just have to be proficient at it. But going back to what you were saying, asking first, financial goals for the year, I'm definitely a spender. So my goal this year is to not, like all my goals where I want to remove stress and not cause myself financial stress, not have to worry about like bills and spending, and, from my own actions, don't put myself in that position that like at the end of the month, oh shit, I put too much money on the credit card again. Yeah. I don't know how successful I'm going to be, but that's my goal.
I think that's every guy's like, oh shit problem.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because people talk about like they'll ask me like, "Hey, do you know anybody to help you start investing?" I was like, "Well, actually, my brother-in-law is an investment banker," and I was like, "I just started." I was like, "But he, I feel better knowing that I at least started doing something." I was like, "But the best part about him is he will also tell you that it's okay to be in acquisition mode for assets. So if you have hobbies like dirt bikes, four-wheelers, new trucks, things like that." He won't tell you that it's not a good idea. In fact, he may influence you in adding in multiple accessories to increase your likelihood to love that purchase. But I guess if I was going to have a financial goal, I would bring it back to I really should spend less money. I'm not good at that. I like to spend. I always look at it as like I can always make more. But some of the things you talked about that kind of hit home is like stress, like with work, like. It might not be me that suffers. It might be the company that I work for that hinders my income potential for that year. And then what does that look like in the short term versus the long term? So spending less money would be good. I know my wife would like to hear that, but I've always kind of implemented the plan like, let me spend and you save. That way, one of us is doing the right thing and the other one of us is enjoying life. What was that?
That's somebody's phone.
Oh,
I was like, someone's going.
It sounded like a boat horn.
What's going on here?
it's
like,
the vibration through the table.
Oh.
Yeah, it really echoes in there. David, what about you? Financial goals for this year?
Well, I guess I can follow suit and say spend less, but no, that would just be a lie. I'm definitely going to focus on earning more because I will spend the same or more this year, and preferably more. I'm at I'm semi-retired. Like I'm definitely at a point where I could retire, but I'm still too young and too much energy, and I want to, I want to get out and I want to spend money and I want to have fun. So
Yeah,
that's going to keep me working, forever. And so one thing, I guess, when I look backwards last year, the one thing I didn't do, so I'm in real estate. I help people buy and sell homes, and I also have a small portfolio of my own homes. And I added no homes to my portfolio last year and no homes the year before either. So whereas going into both of those years, it was, I'm going to add 2 or 3. So I failed at that. And I definitely want to add into the portfolio. I will add into the portfolio this year. I'm not going to try and double to catch up or anything, but
Right.
So definitely want to add 2 more properties in, which will generate, obviously it's an investment, costs money to do that, but that does generate passive income. I know I already do a good job at managing what I have. So I've got plenty of bandwidth to bring on a couple more properties. And again, then that'll free up more spending. That doesn't mean I'm just going to go out and spend it on bullshit. Although, we are talking about.
Why wouldn't you?
I was gonna say,
I mean, we did spend like $300 eating last night between dinner and then 5 a.m. fucking.
Jesus.
Like we're high school. How did we afford to go out until 4 or 5 in the morning when we were in our 20s? Because it is expensive.
It wasn't $500. It was like $50 then.
Dude, oh my God, man.
Well, and on top of, you got to think, when we were younger, we drank at the house before going out to the bars, and then.
Well, we still do that. So
That's true, but I've been saying, like, when me and my friends went out when we were in our 20s, we would drink until we were like drunk almost, and then we got out to the bars and got our last 2 shots in.
Yeah.
And then we had 1 or 2
Pre-game a little
beers.
bit.
Yeah, a pregame.
I was the best pre-gamer. I just went 100% off no matter what. Here, there, doesn't matter. But at my bar tabs, it was a big deal when it was $100.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, well, I mean, it also doesn't help that I drink fucking High Noons that they charge like $7 to $10 for a fucking can of shit that doesn't give me anything but burps and fucking.
I remember last time. I got the high noon burps.
Yeah, dude, they don't fucking go away.
just stick to bourbon.
But yeah, I mean, do our best to try and put some money away. But let's get into some of the first kind of initial questions that So for me personally, I just started investing and putting money into an IRA, right? So is that typically the first step that you see people, or is it usually their own 401ks and things like that?
Yeah, usually the progression that this is retirement money only. Like if you want to save for spending to buy a house for something before retirement,
Okay.
then it's a different path.
Okay.
But take full advantage of your employer's 401k match, free money. I can do good things, but I can't do free money. After you reached your full match, either Roth, if your income is in that position, or traditional IRA, if your income is in that position. Generally, because you can have more control, you have more options within your own account than you do within the list of 25 funds inside the 401k.
Okay.
And then after that, come back and work towards fully funding your 401k. Truthfully, for a lot of people, depending on what your goals are, like if you're shooting for 65, to fund to that full level is probably not required if you start relatively early. Like it doesn't have to be right out of college, but mid 30s, 30 years of compounding, because that's the most important thing is time value. Buy good investments and just wait. And that's the most difficult thing for a lot of people, because you feel like you should always be doing something, or the market beats you up and I should be switching. But it's buy quality and sit on it. If you're investing for something else besides retirement, and all the tax advantages are in the retirement accounts,
Right.
But also lock your money up until 55, 59 and a half.
Okay.
But just a regular brokerage account where you have, unfortunately, capital gains. So because you have the audacity to buy an investment that doesn't go down in value, the government feels they're due 15% of whatever you made.
Of course.
But that money's available at any time.
Without penalty?
No penalty. Just you have to pay your taxes when you realize that capital gain.
And is there like a certain level that those taxes become implemented, or is it anything, any dollar you pull out, or?
Any dollar that you pull out, but there's a separate bracket. So, and I need my cheat sheets to see, because they change them every year.
Sure.
But under a certain amount of income, you have 0% capital gains, and then you have 15%, and then up around $400,000 or $500,000, you move into the 20% capital gain bracket.
Wow.
So while you have lower income, investing in a taxable account isn't bad, because when you sell it, yes, you're realizing capital gain, but you're in the 0% capital gain bracket.
Sure.
Later on, it gets more painful because your capital gain isn't ever taxed as regular income, but your regular income lives on top of it. So no investing, you go out, earn $1, you start at the bottom of the tax brackets. You're investing, you make $50,000 of capital gain. Your first dollar of income is at $50,001. Yeah.
Wow.
And your payroll won't account for that. So you're under withheld all year long. So it kind of just snowballs your tax liability.
Gotta love the taxes.
Yeah.
Well, how else do they start fires like we talked about to
Right.
cover up all the Diddy evidence?
No, and I mean, a lot of what I do is, I mean, you can work your ass off and get 2-3% extra return over the market, and no guarantee. A lot of luck, or you can make a couple smart decisions and save yourself 10% tax. In the final goal that you're planning for, reducing expenses or increasing return, they both do the same thing in the formula. The tax rules are a pain in the butt, but at least you know what they are. January 1st every year, the rules are on the field.
So for someone who's like more on the spending side and not necessarily the best saver, right? So that you don't put yourself in a position where you are older and you don't have anything to live off of other than whatever's left of Social Security at that point. Would you suggest an IRA because, one, you're at least putting a certain amount of money into it leading up to, each year up to that, but two, is that a lower risk typically and then long-term reward? Like you're going to put yourself in a better position and then, hey, you want to spend your paychecks and not worry about putting extra money in the bank account. That's one thing, but at least you have something to fall back on later in life.
Yeah. And well, I tell everyone before you can come in the front door and start putting money in an IRA with me, you need to be maxing out your 401k match.
Yeah.
That's usually the first place that people start. And then I want to get my fingers into it and have a little bit more control. That's where IRAs kick in.
Gotcha.
But then they're like 529s for education savings. People have kids, and that sometimes the light bulb goes off in their head. But it's getting in the mentality of paying yourself first. You don't have to put away a lot of money as long as you have a lot of time. If you put it off, and you realize at 55, like, oh shit, I'm going to retire in 10 years. You need to put away a ton of money and hopefully everything else paid for, because like you need to put away $50,000 a year at that point in time. Whereas for most people, you start at your first job, and if you start taking advantage of the match, and then by the time you're 30, mid-30s, start doing an IRA and maxing an IRA, just those two will put you on enough of a track to have a good retirement fund by the time you retire. And that's Northeast Ohio. We have fairly low cost of living. Like if you're out in New York City or LA, you probably need to be saving more. But at the same time, you should probably be making more.
Right. Yeah, but I mean, the mix isn't always necessarily in the favorable side of things.
Right. Not making money in a high cost of living area is move. You're never going to be successful. You're locked in there.
So, David, you had some questions earlier. I'm obviously, this is about your job and what you do and trying to stay ahead of this for your clients and things like that. What kind of, what's an average day for you look like to prepare? And then also more so when things are happening like right now, wildfires or, catastrophic events that like they affect the market. It's funny because what was that? There was a TV show about it where like the guy became big during freaking 9/11. I can't remember which one. Was it Billions? You guys ever seen the show Billions? Yeah. Like he made because of a catastrophic event, he stayed, and took advantage of the markets and bought up everything that was going to tank, etc. But like, what is it like for you to stay on top of that? Things like if you hear news like that coming out at 6 o'clock at night, is that something you have to be aware of and then like in involved in first thing in the morning?
No. If you're day trading, yes, 100%. If you're long-term investing, it's more, and truthfully, it's more like emotional coaching. You get in the boxing ring and say, I'm not going to get hit. It's not a realistic expectation. The nature of the markets is, we get 3 good years and then a down year, 4 good years, and then a down year. That's historically the average. You can get to any destination taking 3 steps forward and 1 step back. Anyone that, one of my favorite sayings, there's 2 people that know what the market's going to do tomorrow, God and a liar. So if anyone tells you that, oh, you should be doing this or doing that, we're all guessing. And it's, if you have high risk stuff, yeah, you may want to be on top of it a little bit more. But nothing that I'm looking to invest for clients, it's not a go to zero proposition.
Gotcha.
Like we might get whacked at 30%, and I guarantee we'll lose 20% several times. Also, like when people retire, I'm scared of the down market. I don't have a paycheck anymore.
Yeah, for sure.
I hope to God your portfolio goes down 20%, like 3 or 4 times in your retirement. Otherwise, you're going to die in 4 years. That's the only other alternative. So it's just rolling with the punches and using those opportunities. You make all your money in a down market. And what you were talking about, having a goal to buy, but then saying, I didn't buy last year, I didn't buy this year. And at the same time, I would look at it as like, I don't want to rush into a deal because I told myself I was going to have so many in a year.
Right.
Buying at the peak of the market is guaranteeing that you're going to take a loss at some point before you make money. When it's scary as hell and the market's down, that's when you want to be digging your money out of the backyard and running in and buying as much as you can.
Right.
And it applies to anything.
Sure.
But
is there anything that, and I've got like a couple like scenario based questions that I think would be beneficial for a lot of people, but just on that note of, the LA wildfires is a big thing right now. And I think we're going to talk a little bit about that later on, just, for discussion, but is there anything that you're looking at? I know from a day trading perspective, there's probably all sorts of opportunity there, right? Because there's some businesses that are going to crash, and then there's some, like if we had that proverbial time machine and we can go back and sell everything we had in, let's say, 2019, and then invest in like Gojo and sit on that, right? Like we'd be probably doing this podcast from somewhere a little more exotic, I would think.
Definitely.
But I don't know, I guess sensitively, I guess I would say, because obviously, the fires is something that's literally still burning right now, and it's looking like somewhere around $150 billion worth of damage out there. Wow. That's the estimate today, and none of these fires are more than 30% contained right now, and the weather's about to get bad out there. It's starting to get windy again. But what is there anything that is there an industry or anything that you think the markets are going to be, affected come tomorrow morning when the bell rings? Like, is anything going to be up? Anything going to be down?
The one to watch for is they don't know what started it yet, but historically it's the electric utilities. And I read an article that the LA power utility didn't have the fail-safe to start turning off the transmission wires, like when it gets really windy or when there's fires in place already. The last couple fires out in California were from Pacific Gas and Electric, and that's one that I've had my eye on because they're getting beat up right now on the assumption that they might be related to it.
Yeah, and they're in bankruptcy right now too, PG&E.
Yep, but they just got a new hotshot CEO that's supposed to pull them out. So that's a place that I would watch for, and if it turns out that it's not them, there might be some opportunity there. Completely unrelated, the other one that I've been looking at is Reddit. they've run up a whole lot because they're actually, I think they're starting to generate decent revenue. But there's like 20 years of real natural language and conversation. And apparently, like, all the AI companies are dying
Oh wow, I didn't even think about that.
to
Holy
train
shit.
their AI on that.
Yeah,
Because
all the different like threads on how to do this or how to do that or whatever the case.
Well, it's
might-
also like information source too, because people are going there for just street level info as opposed to what's AI curated or left or right leaning media or lobbyist backed media, like that sort of thing. So it makes sense.
That's interesting. I never thought about that, but from an AI standpoint, that would be a solid place to get information. That's literally like being able to gather, you know, 1 million people and ask their thoughts on how to respond to something all at once.
because otherwise, if they just turn the AI loose on the internet in general, like, it always comes back like the most hateful, like terrible. We can't release this to public. But being able to specifically target it and the way everything's categorized. So it's way too expensive right now to buy, but if it comes back down, and I think the markets are going to give up. November, December were really, really hot. We're going into inauguration, and who knows exactly what's happening with tariffs. I think a lot of it is negotiating tactic, but
Yes.
the market hates uncertainty. It can deal with good news or bad news just as long as it's certain. When uncertainty is increased, the market will go down. When uncertainty is removed, the market will go up.
Why does that typically happen? Is that because, you know, they call them whales, but like when money's being pulled out into the market or pulled out of the market or pushed into it at the same point in time, like at those same conjections of like not knowing what's going to happen or instability, like you're kind of talking about.
Yeah.
Is that what then leads to the market, like the regular people pulling, like how does that kind of all come together?
Well, I mean, the 800-pound gorillas, the BlackRocks, the Vanguards, that the big institutional traders that, you know, your 401k money goes somewhere, that control huge swaths of the market. They have algorithms that will react to the news automatically, and then it can become a self-fulfilling prophecy that, okay, the market's down 1% 3 days in a row. Me as a personal investor, I'm going to start pulling my money out, and everything is sped back up.
Gotcha.
Or it could be the retail investor crowd that starts the shift. But there's definite momentum to the market. Why, how? And if someone could figure that out, there'd only be like one guy making money in the whole thing.
Yeah, right. Well, so when you talked about the retail side of things too, on that, have companies like Robinhood, what's another one that's out there?
E-Trade.
E-Trade.
Yeah, E-Trade's not the same as.
What about Yahoo Trade?
No, it's not Yahoo Trade. Is it? Webull?
Yeah, Webull. There's a lot. I think every one of the big brokerages, because like the way I do business, it's largely face to face or on the phone.
Yeah.
We just started implementing an ability to text directly because they're huge fines from the SEC to, I think, like JP Morgan paid something like $5 billion. I'd have to like fact check myself, but the SEC basically raked in something like $70 billion. And it was all on people texting on their personal lines.
Is it an insider trading thing?
No. It's just like the Investment Act of 42 say memos have to be recorded indefinitely, and they said text messages are now a memo. And it like I can't say, but it seemed a lot.
They
like
had text messages in 1942.
Yeah. It seems a lot like it's a cash grab because the SEC might have felt that they might not have the budget after an administration change, so they needed to line the war chest. Again, this is all my allegation.
Sure.
Allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly.
Allegedly.
But so every firm is looking to, okay, how do we do, when millennials want to come in and start to invest, and Gen Z, no one wants to talk on the phone. Like I hardly even talk to my friends on the phone anymore.
Right.
And it's so there has to be a platform that is desirable to younger generations. So like I think Robinhood kind of illuminated that situation.
Because you got it right there on your phone all the time.
Yeah.
And you can make changes, you can sell, you can buy.
And at some point there'll be, and I've got several younger clients that, you know, they did well and then they did poorly and did well, and kind of hobby investors, and like, I don't really actually care about this that much anymore. When I don't pay attention, I lose money. And okay, I just want to give this up. Will you take it over for me? So I don't expect that to change. Like I'm not worried about AI. It's going to be a tool that's needed. But in the end, you know, hey, I have $1 million saved for my retirement. Do I want to talk to a chatbot on what I should do with my money?
Sure.
Starting out, yeah, I think it'll be necessary. There's not enough. The average age of a financial advisor goes up by 1 every year. There's not enough new people coming into the business. And then there'll be a giant funneling of people looking for advisors as their advisors retire.
Sure.
So there's opportunity if you want to work in the space. It's just, it's always been a hard business to get into.
Why is that? You mean it's been a hard business to get into on as far as the advisor side? Is it because of what's required of you? Is it because of
And there's some test and licensing that's not, it's difficult, but it's not like studying for the bar as an attorney. It's the coming up with the client list, coming up with a list of people that are willing to trust you with your money.
Sure.
So you can not make any money for 5 years as you build that up. Once you reach a critical mass, then it becomes a sustainable business.
Gotcha.
So it's just like starting any other business.
Sure.
But part of what people trust is that you've been in the business for a while, and it's hard to have that when you haven't been in the business for a while.
Yeah, I'd imagine like knocking down doors and asking people to give you money is not the easiest thing to get started on.
Especially when you're brand new at it too. Like, hey, I just started this.
Yeah.
How about you give me your hard-earned savings and see what I can do with it? Right?
Yeah. I know you've been managing it all this time and you've been okay, but I could do better, I promise. Wink, wink.
Yeah. That's sort of real estate too. Like, when you're newly licensed, like, unless you're working with first-time buyers, like you're working with people who know a hell of a lot more about the whole process than you do. So it's sort of the same in that regard.
Well, I think that comes from, when somebody has experience, anything could go wrong, right? Like, all 4 of us, if you bring up real estate, all 4 of us could be selling a house at the exact same time to a client. All 4 of us at the same time could have some crazy, weird thing go on during the inspection that creates a hiccup with the financing or whatever the case might be. If I'm brand new, that might be the first time I came across that issue or problem. So I'm going to need to reach out to people. I'm going to be slower to react, which is then going to put the buyer or the seller, whatever, them in a panic mode.
Right. Yeah.
And so I would imagine it's much the same, especially when it comes to the money that people invest. Cause you mentioned, inheritance is one way that people come into money. Well, I'll give a perfect example is my wife. She inherited. That's how she started investing with about 3 or 4 years ago. She came into an inheritance, and it was like, well, her first thought is just put it in a savings account, which does absolutely nothing. You don't lose, but you really don't generate anything.
It makes the bank money is what it does.
Yeah. Well, it gives them money to keep using for everything that they're doing.
You do lose though, actually. Like, if it were 100,000 and that's a lot of money, but that's less money 5 years down the road. There's no interest you're going to earn in a savings account that's going to hedge, inflation and everything. So
correct in that sense, but you don't have to worry about the market dropping 20% and your 100,000 turning into 80.
Right.
But when she did finally make that decision, okay, I'm going to give a chunk of it to a financial advisor and let him kind of handle it. Well, then it's like, why hasn't he called me? The market's not doing well. Like, why hasn't he called me? I'm down. Or why aren't we setting up meetings? And it's because inexperience. She's never done it before, and that panic starts to set in. And then it's a simple 5-second conversation with your advisor who explains to you everything's okay, this is standard, this is typical, da 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 da, and you calm that person back down. But if you're brand new and you don't answer it correctly, that panic is going to go, and that's when people probably start taking out money, and then it's just that's where that experience definitely pays off, especially in two. If you're new and say when did you start, Austin, doing it?
It's 14 years ago now, 2012.
So roughly, what were you, 30 or 26?
32.
32.
I think that's right. Yeah.
So would you say the average investor in your office was older than you at that time?
Oh, 100%.
Right.
The office is 40 years old this year. Dad started in 1985.
Wow. Yeah, so I mean, when you wait, hold on a second. Your dad told me stories about you back in the day. Shit.
Yeah.
But then that call's coming in, and here's a guy who's 65 years old. You could be dealing with millions of dollars. You could be dealing with just enough to get by when in his retirement. And if that's Johnny Newbie, as I always say, who's 28, 30 years old and has zero experience, it doesn't answer those questions right, you lose that client. That client loses. I mean, it's just an all-around bad scenario, I'd imagine.
Well, and it's a lot of relationship. You can be great at a job, and if you don't click with someone, then that's not the relationship that you should force. On the advisor side and on the client side.
Right.
If you don't like me, you're not going to want to talk to me. If I don't like you, I'm not going to like talking to you as well. So it's getting established, learning what you don't know, knowing what you don't know, not knowing what you don't know is what is the killer in any business.
Sure.
But yeah, like what you were talking to, and what you were starting to talk about is market decline is not. I don't get worked up about it. It doesn't scare me. It's a cycle. It's going to happen. There's only been one time in history where the market hasn't re-earned a previous high, and it's right now. And it will hit a new high, and then we will come back down from it. Inflation is the scary thing, and no one is ever scared of inflation is because it's slow. Like in our lizard brains, we were never afraid of the slowest, oldest, most decrepit saber-toothed tiger. It was the big, nasty one that's going to kill us right now. And we still, like loss aversion, that's hardwired into us. You'll be focused on market decline and not the slow creep of inflation. I've never had a client that's earned back $1 lost to inflation. We've always earned back every dollar lost to market volatility. So that's what you need to be aware of, that your money 20 years from now better be worth twice as much. Otherwise, you're half as wealthy. And if your timeline is longer than 20 years, well, now that's going to start compounding.
So you mentioned, obviously, inflation has severely been impacted over the last 5-6 years.
Yeah.
Really the last 3, I guess you would say, since COVID.
And it's lumpy. The number that we always use, the average of inflation is 3% a year. But we went for a decade where it was 2%, and now we eat it all at once. And my expectation is it's going to be low for a while, and then we'll eat it all at once again.
Right.
It's the ebb and flow. If it was all on computers and all AI, it would be perfectly smooth every year.
Yeah, awesome.
But because there's human emotion behind it, there's, the train cars. You hear a train start and all the cars bang at one point in time when the train finally gets stretched out.
Right.
And it slows down and they all go, coast for a while, and then they all bang together again. One of my others is 4 days a year, companies announce their earnings. So they open their books. You actually know what they're worth. The trouble with the stock market is it's open for 252 days a year. So 4 days we trade on fact. The other 248, it's, human emotion.
Yeah.
And not the most reliable factor.
If only we had that Nancy Pelosi. If only she was in our corner, this would be a lot easier.
I don't know the truth, but I heard that the there's a website called like Unusual Whales, and they'll track Pelosi, and the two best performing were tracking Pelosi and then doing the opposite of what Jim Cramer says.
If we could have on Paul Pelosi on Guys Night podcast, that would be amazing. Hey, Paul, let's get hammered.
Yeah, that's funny. I like how you threw that in there.
Yeah, sorry, Paul.
Are you though?
No.
So on the financial, we talked earlier about how men start later. Mm-hmm. Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I think men are more impulsive spenders. So you go out and start making money, and
Motorcycles.
yeah, everyone has something in their mind that they're going to buy. I don't know. Like, that's not necessarily been my experience as much with women. Women are a lot less risk averse, so they have more. And historically, things are changing. Historically, have less money invested, a lot more difficulty staying invested type thing. Men will look at it, oh, I lost money. Well, I'm out making money, so what do I really care? I'm just going to put more in. And that's, I going back, how hardwired, I don't know.
Yeah.
There's been lots of studies, psychology-wise, and that's what it, basically comes down to is men are less risk-averse because they're naturally risk-takers. And not specifically for everyone, but that's how things skew.
So it's interesting because you mentioned, risk-taking. The other aspect of it too, and this ties in. So this weekend we talked about it a little earlier. We went to this thing at our local Common Ground where they had a bunch of different vendors out. This one was pertaining to health and fitness and stuff. And we were actually hoping to go meet other men that wanted to be interested in coming on. One of the companies that was here was PH Performance, and they were there. But every single business, whether it was chiropractic, run by a nurse practitioner, or some kind of health, fitness with food, even the gym that was there, it was all run by women. Mm-hmm. So the only person there we had a relationship with was PH Performance. We had a long conversation with them. They're going to be back on the show as well. But we talked to one of the original founders of it, which was Logan, the wife of Josh, who was on the show. And I was like, I'm just curious. I was like, we came down here looking for men to be on the show, but every single one of these companies is owned by women. Congratulations to them. It's not meant to be in a negative way, but I was like, why do you think that is? And she goes, actually, I have a theory on that. I go, okay. She's like, so, Josh and I were married, and I think she's like, I think this goes back just to, everyday life. The man has his responsibility is to make sure the bills are paid, to take care of the house, to do all this, or whatever the case, whatever his plan of action. Typically, he's a higher earner at the time, and he was like, if we're gonna start this, like, go ahead, you take off and you can do this. I can still make the money to support the family in case it fails. Whereas in most scenarios, like, she's like, I didn't have the income that he had at that point in time. And if it would have failed, like, we would have been in a really bad position, because one of the things that was required of her is once you take yourself off of, was it the Medicaid list? So basically when they started this practice at PH Performance, and they practice medicine, they have to remove themselves from the Medicaid list, which means they can't take Medicaid. So basically it makes her unhireable for 2 years, because no doctor's office is going to hire a nurse practitioner that can't take Medicaid as far as her funding goes. So she's like, I really think that's what it is. Like, most of these scenarios is the man is like, I'll stay consistent and keep doing what I'm doing. Like, and this will give you the opportunity to kind of launch this and see how it goes, and we'll be fine in the meantime. I just was curious, like, if investing is kind of the same way, whereas, like it is in my household, like, I spend because I know I can make more. My wife likes to save. That's part of her nature as well, but it's easier for her to invest versus I don't want to give up my money for later. I want it now.
You want to use it now. Trips.
But like she doesn't take the risk of not having money in the savings. I do, right? So that's the part you're talking about. But at the same point in time, like I'm also, if I start making a plan where I'm putting money into it, whatever my IRA or all these different investment portfolios, like most of them are retirement based with the lowest risk. So if I am going to put money away for me personally, that's where I want to put it. But then that's gone. Like I can't touch that money. It's not like I'm putting it into my regular savings account where I can just go grab it out if I'm short 1 month or whatever. So I'm interested in if there's any say to that, is that's why a lot of men, wait to invest, because they're always just making, like, they don't want to have that ability to not get that money back without fines or expenses and things like that.
And I think women are more methodical and men are more impulsive. And I mean, going back to the business owning, there's a lot of boring aspects to owning a business that just have to be done. And that's where, men are great at having big ideas and chasing them down. But once you have it, and things need to be taken care of, that's where I see men having trouble running their businesses. And then kind of the big idea to grow your business, that's where I've seen women not be as successful as they could be. It's not that you're going to fail. It's just that you're not going to, I have my one location and I'm perfectly happy taking care of it, where you could have 15 across 5 different counties. And it's that, I'm going to take on that risk and be the guy in that position.
Right.
So and again, it's stereotypical. There's exceptions to every one of those rules,
Of course.
but in general, I don't know. That's been my gut experience. So just sticking to the recipe, and I think women are better at that than men. So applying to investing, saving for retirement, why women start sooner than later, it may be some of that, because that's what you're supposed to do. That's the recipe to success.
Sure.
Where we get big ideas and I want to do this first before I want to consider that boring putting money away for retirement.
Is there not that I want to circle every conversation back to real estate, but we're going to do that in a second here. But in financial advice, what's the workplace balance like, men and women?
A lot more men than women. Always have been. The ratio has been shifting back, but it's still definitely like the old boys club. But it's difficult for women to, like, if you have a goal of having a family, it's difficult to run that business when I want to spend time raising children. And not to pigeonhole anyone into it, but a lot of the successful women advisors I know came into the business after they were done raising their children.
So it's funny, as I was thinking about this, because in real estate, it's dominated by women, and it's been dominated by women since, there's probably some stats like pre-civil rights era, but definitely since the civil rights era, because post World War II, men were in the trades, men were, then going to college and or going to Vietnam and all that stuff. And then, this was during the baby boom. And so when mom was having children, she can go start showing homes just part-time, like evenings and weekends. And then fast forward to today, the top most powerful husband and wife real estate teams that are out there, the wife started. Like just exactly like that. Like he was and I'm being general here, of course, across the board, but in a lot of cases, the mister of the house continued on with his job, and she just, started just kind of plugging away. But, you see a lot of them driving Mercedes and BMWs, but she would be driving, the Honda Odyssey to go show homes and all of that, because, most women don't impulsively think, oh, well, I can afford a Corvette now, so I'm going to go, although some do. But they generally don't spend their money on that. They're not impulsive. They just start putting money away. And then the husband saying, well, shit, I'm working 70 hours a week and she's making quadruple what I'm doing. Like, fuck this. I'm going to do that. Like, so it's interesting to see that parallel. So it's sort of surprising that other, I do know female financial advisors, but I just never thought to ask like what the mix of it was. Yeah.
And the thing that I've noticed in real estate is residential dominated by women, but on the commercial side, it seems to be more men in that space.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's, I'm not exactly sure why. I don't have the answer for that, but I mean, it's a different process when you're in residential. You may end up on a team. Some new agents start out on a team, but you know, those that are successful, they're on their own out there, and it's a commission only gig. When you're in commercial real estate, there might be a little bit more of the good old boys network still at play there, because you know, you're dealing with you know, corporations that own commercial property in big numbers, and so maybe there's some sexism with it there. So,
well, I think the other thing is to, for instance, once again, we talked about the majority of the income in the household is typically, or at least was for years. And I know there's women making more money now, but typically the man's the breadwinner, right? So if he's investing that money into, like, he doesn't want to deal with a woman necessarily. I feel like it's like that traditional outlook, which there's nothing wrong with, but if I'm going to give somebody my money, like, I want to be able to like talk to shit with them. I want to I want like that banter that I'm going to get with them. I'm also like, I respect, like, this man's been doing this for a long time. He's very successful. He probably knows other men that are successful. And it's I don't mean offense to a woman, but like, I don't want you touching my money if I don't even let my own wife touch my money. And also, like, you know, are you going to be worried about my money all the time, or are you going to be worried about your kids? Are you going to be worried about play dates? Are you going to be worried about, like, you know, your Honda Odyssey, if it has TV screens or not? Like, I feel like there's like something to it when it comes to money. It's like one of those things that men hold dear, and it's one of those things that you want to trust with other men. When it comes to real estate, I don't really give a fuck who's showing me a house. I think, like, it doesn't matter if it's a guy or a girl. If
you are a single man and you're moving to a new neighborhood,
I'd rather have a woman.
Why is that?
Maybe she's at least nice to look at.
This is exactly why my dog appears in all of my photos and everything.
I mean, let's be realistic though. Like, for instance, if you're showing me a house and a woman is showing me a house, the amount of knowledge regarding the specific house, you guys both found it on the same websites, did your own. Maybe you know the neighborhood a little bit differently than she does if she's from a different. But if you put apples to apples, you guys are about the same when it comes to that.
Yeah.
As far as the process of closing in a house, it's pretty. It's really between the lenders and everything else. It doesn't really affect that relationship.
Thank you for minimizing my profession. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. No, I mean, but it's the relationship ultimately. But so if you get in front of those people, like, you know, you're a guy who people are going to like to talk to, want to spend time with, and like trust to do good business, and you're, you know, an educated person. But if you're just calling a number in the house, like, looking for a realtor, like, you're not as, it's not as tied to what you're looking at. Now, if I'm a farmer and I want to go buy a truck, we used to have this all the time. Like, men would come on, listen, well, honey, you're not telling me about this Dodge Ram with the fucking Cummins, right? And I'm sure you saw that in the dirt bike side of things too, like guys coming in buying a crotch rocket and things like that. Now, obviously,
women don't come into the motorcycle dealership.
Yeah.
You mean they're not allowed?
Yeah.
Always welcome. Just never.
Well, men don't bring them in because they don't want them to tell them that they can't buy something.
That's true.
Like, if I go to the motorcycle dealership and I accidentally stumble across a great deal, if my wife's with me, probably not going to be able to take advantage of that as quickly. And then I'm going to have to do some behind the scenes action shit, like from the phone, email. Like I'm a very like buy now type person, like spontaneous.
You definitely brought her to fill out the credit report.
Oh shit. But,
No, yeah, I mean, like, you know, Heather, my admin.
Yeah.
And we deal with that some. And it's very much a generational thing, and it seems to be subsiding somewhat. Well, older men will call in. I just need to talk to Austin. That's
Right.
it.
But that goes back to that relationship too.
Yeah.
They have the relationship with you.
And it's, even if it's something that I don't do, and I tell them, like, you don't want me handling admin stuff because it won't get done right. And I don't, it's kind of the same thing. We, like, both sides have spaces that we operate in. Like, when I was at the motorcycle dealership, 95% of the people through the door were men. And you can find the exact same thing. I don't know where, but
What,
Sephora.
for women?
Yeah.
100%. I don't expect to go see 8 men behind the register at
Yeah.
Ulta or
Yeah.
whatever the makeup place is.
Ulta.
If I do, they're probably all wearing nail polish and talking with a funny accent and maybe flowing their hands around awkwardly.
Which I guess the other point is you want someone who, like, you know, loves the product.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that kind of goes back to residential and commercial, like not the homemaker thing, but to have the home, you know, kind of have the nest, is something that's important to women, a lot of women. Like, leave me up to my own devices, I would sleep on a sofa in a warehouse so I could be closer to my motorcycles.
Trying to figure out what Evan's doing over here.
I'm just looking up some of my financial stocks I invest in.
Oh, really? Well, we have a financial advisor.
I know,
right
I know
here.
that.
He
I'm
could
just-
probably tell you
I'm-
that's a bad idea to do that on the podcast.
Anything interesting, Evan?
I just looked at my Bitcoin and I couldn't believe how much it's up. So I'm like, oh shit.
I don't, what has it been doing recently?
Let me go back. It's been going up and down quite a bit.
Yeah.
That's what it's up to 95,000 right now.
Okay. But didn't it
Almost
got over 100 for a while?
Yes, it got over 100 a few days ago, and then it's been dropping slowly right now. It looks like yet today it ended at 9565.
Well, it's Sunday, so
Yeah, so
doesn't really.
and I just
No, it trades 24 hours a day, 365 days a year.
Does it
Bitcoin
really?
does.
Yeah.
Bitcoin.
Crypto.
So is it all crypto that does?
Yeah.
So can you sell crypto on a Sunday through like a Robinhood or something like that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Really?
I will never. I'm not gonna unless it hits like very like down. I will never sell any of my Bitcoins because isn't the like you have to pay in taxes so much right now?
Yeah, you don't get capital gains on
Yeah.
Bitcoin. It's all regular income.
Yeah, so it's not worth it for me. It's not worth it all right
Wow.
now.
So you give up 40% of your earnings on crypto?
It depends on what your tax bracket is. It's whatever profit you make. It's like you just took a second job and earned that in a paycheck.
Wow, I did not know that about
Yeah,
Bitcoin.
that's why I'm like I will.
So
never,
is your best thing to do in that scenario? Let's say you were going to do something with it. Is there a way to do that where you're not taking that money? Do you have to take the money physically out of the market in order to get taxed on it in that sense, or?
Just the liquidation of the investment, turning it back to U.S. dollars.
Gotcha. So if I have $100,000 and it turns into 200,000, the second that I do anything with that, if I sell that 200,000, like that's income.
Yep. Well, it depends on what you're owning. Real estate, regular investments, it's capital gains.
Right.
Cryptocurrency is kind of the outlier where it's just regular income. I think it's not regulated like a security yet, so that's why the government set. And so I don't trust cryptocurrency in the least bit.
No, I 100%. I bought my crypto coins years ago when it first came out. I bought each coin I bought for was $25.
Really?
Yeah, it was like 2009, 2008, something like 2010, something like that. And I totally forgot about them, and did not realize I had them up until like 5 years ago when the pandemic first hit, and they're like. And then I was going through my portfolios and stuff and my financial stuff, and I was like, holy shit, I actually own Bitcoins. I totally forgot about it for like 10 years. I did not know where the paperwork was,
Yeah.
sign in and stuff. And then I realized I had it, and I'm thinking, holy shit, now I have cryptocurrency.
Have you ever considered investing in a podcast?
And the funny thing is, I did.
We take Bitcoin. We just started, actually.
I
I just need you to transfer that into my account. Can you go ahead and set that up?
well,
The real reason you're here.
no. Isn't it true that you can use cryptocurrency to buy stuff and not get taxed on it?
I think if you use it as a currency
Yeah.
and don't liquidate it, it's not.
Yeah, it's not tax. Yeah, because I've done like little research on stuff. Because if you buy like, people have paid their like college tuition, buying cars with their cryptocurrency.
And then you don't pay taxes on it because you're using it as a currency,
Yeah,
maybe.
don't take. I am not a CPA, so do not take any of my tax advice.
Yeah, but that's all I've heard. I've watched like YouTube videos and stuff, and I've like read reports and stuff. But I've heard there's little legal ways around it, little gray areas.
Technically, you're not the one selling it at that point in time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. You mentioned YouTube and things like that, and we talked about the shortage of financial advisors. But do you think a lot of people are doing their own investing more so now than before because of the ability of information online, which I mean is great, but
And access to the markets. Like,
yeah,
way back when my dad started, you needed a stockbroker to have access to the markets. Now anyone has access to the markets on their phone. So that's gone away. And then it was portfolio picking. Now you can have not even AI, but an algorithm.
yeah,
Algorithmic.
Yeah, there we go. And it'll put together and maintain and balance a portfolio for you. So you don't need a person for that. It's more the planning side of things. And for the time being, that's intricate enough that a one size fits all. You can't just feed the information into a machine and have it spit out, this is what you should be doing. There's lots of rules of thumbs out there, but that isn't necessarily, like you always see the articles, you should have this much saved by this age kind of thing.
yeah, of course.
And if you're going to have an average retirement for an American, but there's one that sits on the average and then everyone else is somewhere else on the bell curve. That's most of the conversation. And then the psychological part of it. It's people that can deal with the volatility of the market on their own. I've sat down with some potential clients and, what are you going to pay me for? You're doing all the right stuff yourself right now. I don't want you to resent paying me for not getting anything more than you're doing right now.
Right.
So it's I use a plumber analogy. Like I absolutely can fix my toilet. I won't do it right the first time. I'll probably break some stuff. I'll watch a couple videos, but I'll get it done.
Right.
I think I'm just going to pay someone to do it for me because one, I can go to work and make more money. And two, I don't have to worry about it. I know it's done and done professionally, and I don't do anything more than that. So it's, if you want to be a do-it-yourselfer, make sure you're fully informed. If you don't want to be a do-it-yourselfer, there's always someone out there that you can pay to do the job for you. That's the benefit of our economy.
Well, and that's like anything except this is your money, right? Like I know there's a lot of people that were even doing day trading and stuff like that, especially during COVID because nobody was at work. They had to stay home. So they had more time to like stare at the markets and make sure they were doing all the right things and staying informed through Reddit and all these different things that people put information out there for. But as soon as like that kind of ended and they were back at work and they couldn't watch that 24/7, like that's when they started losing a ton of money or losing everything that they had made, and they look back and they're like, oh, that was stupid. I lost a bunch of money. Well, no, you took advantage of some time that you had. If I don't have to work and my toilet breaks, yeah, fuck it. I'll take a day and watch 3 or 4 videos and give it a shot. And I'll feel really good about myself at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But if I'm working 5 days a week and my wife wants to go on a date on Saturday and Sunday, we're doing something with the kids or family or something that I don't have a day to waste.
Yeah.
So then what would happen is my toilet would stay broke because I would tell myself I'm just going to keep fixing. And I think that happened a lot with a lot of people that were investing in that time period. And then it's like panic mode. Like, oh, I just lost it. And even if it was 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, then they started making kind of like you and I always talk about DraftKings. Like, as long as you just bet like small and consistent, like you usually end up in the positive. But when you start losing big, well, then you start betting bigger, and then that's when those market and then yeah. Whereas
no, and that was true of like a lot. I mean, sports memorabilia went crazy, cars went crazy. You know, left to our own devices and we're not working. The vast majority of us are just figuring out how new and creative ways to spend our money.
right.
And
Which is hilarious to think about now. Like, wow, no job, no work. I mean, the government was giving us something, but yeah, at least some of us.
But so plumbers, that just sort of triggered, I guess, a thought, and this is a little bit of a rewind here. But so, plumbers make on average about, and this is probably pretty new plumbers, across the U.S. about $62,000 a year, and there's some that make less, and then the highest in the top 10 percentile, it's a 6-figure job. So earlier when we were talking about like people, you said that first step is you got to be maxing out your 401k and all these things right before they come in through your door. So we know that like moving forward, like there's just going to be this big influx of people into the trades because of need. Like there's going to be a lot of incentive and everything. So I guess this is my situational question I had earlier, and just kind of circling back to that. So what does somebody do that is, let's say, they hit adulthood, they find themselves a sweetheart, they have a child, they go immediately to work, and then, they're supporting themselves, child becomes something like a plumber, and they're making good money, but then, they're living in somewhere like, Berkeley, California, where they've got to pay like $2,800 a month for rent for a 2-bedroom apartment. So maybe they own a home, maybe they don't own a home, and they're just living their life, raising their kid. And then, now the kid's an adult and going off, and then, maybe they're married, but they're now 38, 39, 40 years old, no 401k, and living. Where do they start?
And so right now the fastest path to
Watch the mic there. You're getting a little far from the mic.
Oh,
just
okay.
so you know.
The fastest path to being a millionaire these days is in the trades, and then getting into being a business owner. A situation where like benefits aren't available to you. Then truthfully, it is a lot on you. You have to go out and say, I'm going to do this. This is a priority for me. But even still, getting started, having the realization at 40 or 45, and what we started out with, you're starting to move out of the acquisition phase of your life. Ideally,
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
And what gets really hard, the situations that I deal with, is when someone is 50, hasn't saved anything, and is still in the acquisition phase of their life. They just bought a new house, or I want to put a pool in.
Oh man, he's gaslighting now.
That's where, okay, now you got to sit down and figure out what your priorities are. Because if you want to still acquire, then 65 isn't the number for you. It might be 70. If you want to keep acquiring until the day you die, then you're going to have to work probably for a long time. I know there's a old Warren Buffett quote, unless you figure out how to make money while you sleep, you work until you die. So it's that balancing act. I have people that, want to pile every single excess dollar they have into their investments. And I tell them that they're just as wrong as the people that save nothing, because you're going to build up this habit, and you get to, and at fire, this is where I run into trouble with fire. You build this habit of being a pauper and building up this big sum of money, and then you're just going to retire and still be a pauper, or retire and have a giant sum of money and flip the switch, and now you're going to live high in the hog.
Right.
Psychologically, you're not going to do that. I know that. People don't change. They develop their habits. They stick to them. So it's walking that middle ground. Yes, save, but also, you have to spend. You have to enjoy. When you have a kid, 18 years, 365 days, it's like something like 7,000 days that you have with a child before they're 18, and you don't get any of those back. I've got 90-year-old clients that have more money than they ever thought they would have. But I ask them, if you knew you were going to pass away with this, would you have bought that new Cadillac when you were 40 or taken that extra vacation? You can't buy health or youth. So it's, we're burning something every day, whether it be money or time, and make sure you have your plan balances all things out, because I'll be really, really wealthy at 78, but you're also not really going to feel like getting on an airplane and flying to Australia. So that's the tough balance to be aware of, and being too singly focused on just one thing in the whole planning aspect. That's where you get yourself derailed and off on tangents.
That's a really good point, because you actually just mentioned two things that I've experienced with a family member. So my wife's aunt, she's still in great shape, but her husband not so much. And they live out in Boston, which is a pretty active community. But she likes to travel, London, things like that. And her husband can't be on a flight for 8 hours. When they come to Ohio, most of the time she comes by herself, because she can sit in a car and drive for, from Boston or whatever. And it's uncomfortable for them. They have to stop more often. And, one of the things she told me when we were sitting down is, she's like, it's great that you guys travel so much, because, this is that's something we always talked about, was getting through this and then spending our time retired and traveling. And she just retired. She was like a COO for a major company up until I think 3 or 4 years ago. And she's done now, and she wants to travel, and they just can't. She came by herself, but that wasn't the vision that they had.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that, I try and tell people, like, obviously saving money is one thing. But focus on what you're spending that money on too, right? When you talk about acquisition stage, are you buying something that is just going to be thrown into a corner 3 or 4 years down the road, or are you buying something that you're going to, you can use for the next 10 years, right? Are you buying something that truly brings you joy, or are you spending $20 and like you'd rather have that $20 back tomorrow? I would definitely rather have the $84 back spent on breakfast at 5 a.m. this morning. Luckily, my wife bought breakfast, but that was not a great investment. I could have eaten Taco Bell for about, a tenth of that? Yeah, and been much happier. But
You think you're getting out of Taco Bell for $8.40?
Not anymore, dude.
No.
It is insane. Like I used to get I get the same thing probably for like 20 years. I've been a creature of habit, where it's like soft taco supreme, regular bean burrito, chicken quesadilla. I remember that meal was like $6. Mm-hmm. It's like $11, $12, $13 now. I don't even know. It's like, man, but that's that inflation you talk about. And that's where that money that you thought you were, you used to be able to spend on stuff like that. It's like, yeah, maybe I'll not do that, because now I can eat chicken and rice all week for like $50. But I can go on that trip. I can buy a new car. I can put wheels on the Bronco, or whatever the case might be on what you want to spend that money on. And I don't want to be at the point where I'm 70 years old. I tell my wife all the time, there's a point in my life where I can have to eat ramen fucking noodles and live in a 1-bedroom shack, I'll do that at 70. I don't want to do that at 40, just to say that I'm saving money so I can live better at 70, if that makes sense. But everybody has a different outlook on it. Do you notice people who come from money, I should say, are better at saving than people who come without?
The better at managing, because you don't get a bunch of money unless you're, and no one's good in the beginning, but the more you have to manage, the more you have to do, the better you get at it. It's at both sides. If you can always fall back to the bank of mom and dad, and there was never, you could fail, but you're not living on the street failing.
Right.
it's a different mentality, and that person will be more of a risk taker. It's a generational wealth thing, and you like the first generation makes all the money, the second generation will grow it, and then you hear like the third and fourth generation just blow it all. So yes, but then people that have been savers and become millionaires that way still are savers in retirement, which is the worst thing you could be in retirement. And that's the fundamental problem with retirement. We should all be retired from like 25 to like 40 and then work until we die.
Yes, 100%. Much better life, much better life expect or happiness at that point. And I mean, it's true because life goes fast, you know. And what's the point of having that money when you have back pain every day, when your days are shorter, when you have less energy? When I get the point of like, yeah, that's also a point in time that you don't want to work. Yeah. But I see so many people that are retired and they're like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah. No, and
maybe you would know what to do if you spent all that time traveling or having all these different hobbies and going out riding four-wheelers or whatever, you know, that you like to do. Then maybe that retirement would be a little bit better too.
No, you got to have purpose. And this is something that's particular to men. Like they get defined by their work. And then you take that away and some people get depressed. They don't know who they are. This is all I've done for the last 40 years and I'm defined by this, and it's not a bad thing. That's what they
took pride in.
Right.
Yeah.
And then to take it away because I'm at the age that I shouldn't do this anymore and not have anything to fill the space. You can have all the money in the world. You're not going to be happy. So that's the purpose part of it is important. And once we get people truthfully to, you know, you're financially successful for retirement. Now tell me what that first day looks like, that first week, that first month. And I don't know. I'm going to sit in my easy chair and watch Price is Right. Well, you're going to be dead in 5 years.
Yeah.
So it's knowing what you want to do, knowing what's on that bucket list, knocking it out. And even if it's like, it's not so, where we're saying you're going to be in bad health and you won't be able to do things. I have plenty of older clients that are in good health, but you just kind of become a homebody. They don't have the grand aspirations of, you know, I want to go around the world or even go to the Bahamas.
Right.
You know,
my father just retired 3 years ago, and that's what he is. Literally, my dad can travel almost like a month every year with no problem with financial problems, but he doesn't want to do it. He's always worried about spending too much money. He's gotten that habit his whole life because my grandfather was military/coal miner after World War II, and then my dad just picked up his habits. My grandfather worked until he died. And now my dad was expecting to do that, but my mom forced him to retire at 70 years old. So, and now he just stays home, works around the house, and I sometimes have to kick him out and go for a walk or go out to eat or something like that. But he does not want to ever do anything. My mom is finally convincing him to go on a cruise.
There you go.
I'm like, Dad, go on a cruise. Don't worry about anybody else in the family. Go do stuff.
Yeah.
And he finally sees me traveling with some of my friends, and he actually is like, okay, I'm going to do this. But again, then he starts worrying about, am I going to fall off the ship and get drunk? I'm like, oh, Dad.
Does he want to invest in a podcast?
He actually watches.
Yeah?
Yeah, he watches
awesome.
it. So,
that's great.
Yeah.
Hey, Dad.
Yeah,
Sorry
we
about-
should have him on and see if
He used to work for Corona.
Yeah?
As he used to work for Constellation Brands.
Yeah.
As a marketing supervisor.
Wow.
So
Oh, the apple didn't fall far from the bottle,
No.
or whatever that expression.
Yeah.
If it were possible, like 100% possible, it would be interesting to just like swap out our dads for ourselves for like a podcast.
Yeah, for
like,
sure.
That would be
Yeah,
Be a
my
great
dad
story.
would probably be sitting here plotting your murders, by the way. But you know, whatever. No, he's a sweetheart. But
But I exact like what you're saying. My dad's a creature of habit.
Yeah.
He does not want to leave the house. We literally have to force him to leave and do stuff. And he's financially sound. He's
Right.
sound in mind and all that stuff. But he just doesn't want like spending money ever.
And
He
first generation wealth is like that a lot of times.
I'm just like, I constantly tell him, I'm like, you're 72 years old.
Yeah.
Go do something. Like my grandfather literally never did anything. He did not want to leave the house. He worked on his car.
It wasn't an option.
No, it wasn't. He worked to support the family. And after retirement, he still was supporting the family after retirement.
Well, it's. I wonder too. So something to say about that, right? If you come with, you have a little bit of money and you're a pocket saver, like you're putting every dollar away, and then so what do? You live frugally in order to continue to put money away because you're so worried about that retirement aspect. I would almost think that the fear of that money, that retirement not being enough, would be even more so on the day that you retire and every day after, because of the way that you live your life, you never put yourself into oh shit mode. You know what I'm talking about? Like, where like shit, I need to find a way to make $1,000 in the next 2 weeks to pay my mortgage or I'm fucked. Like if you've never come across that, you don't even know you have it in you. So, and your son's living at home with you and you got a wife who's retired as well.
Yeah,
Not working.
She hasn't worked. My mother hasn't worked since like the 1980s.
Yeah, so he's got this whole thing figured out to where he's constantly making sure he wants to make sure everybody's taken care of. He wants to make sure everybody's got enough money, and he's always saved. So of course that paranoia is there. Like, what do I do if it's not enough money?
Yeah.
And you don't know what you're capable at that point because you spent your whole year not ever putting yourself in that scenario. And I wonder if that makes an impact on how, those retirements go and how those men are after the fact. Because like you said, the guy who's worked and retires at 70 was really good at what he did. He doesn't know what to do with his time or his money. He's probably going to go back to work even if he doesn't have to, or find something to invest in that's going to give him like a sense of empowerment, a sense of feeling.
Literally my father, actually. He volunteers with the animal shelter out there, and he has for 14 years now. And it's his job. Like almost every day he's doing something with it. Doesn't have to, but that's his why now every day.
Yeah.
Well, you gotta have something.
Yeah. I totally get that. I tell my dad, like, literally go back to work for a little bit, like 2 days of work.
Do something you always wanted. I would like go do something at work that you know what? Go be a freaking bouncer at a strip club. Go do that at 65 years old. Like I always wanted to be a bouncer at a strip club. Like what the heck? Like,
but during the day, he should also pick up some video editing too.
Yes. There you go.
Well, my dad. The funny thing is, he is very tech savvy.
Yeah.
My dad, at 70 years old, he loves new technology. And as soon as I got a Surface tablet, my dad, I come back home one day, he's all over this thing, playing with it and stuff. And my dad's like, "Oh, I think I might get one now." I'm like, "Okay, pops, whatever you want to do."
Dude, we gotta teach him to be a videographer.
Oh,
for
yes.
content. That'd be great.
Yep.
I'll talk to him about it. That'd be great. It'd be funny though.
Does he have a passport?
Yes, he does.
Okay.
I told him, like, he actually I went with my family a few years ago, and he went with us to Ireland, and then since I work for Beverage. Beverage works with Guinness. I got a VIP tour of the Guinness facility I took my family to.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So
so you can take your family to work with you, but you can't take.
It's work. It's just a little tour. But no, if we go to Ireland this year, I'll talk to the Guinness people and see if we can get another VIP tour for the facility.
Hope so.
Definitely.
For sure.
Awesome.
So.
All right. So I do have a couple of questions on some other stuff. We've talked about 401k matching. So my first 401k that I was offered, I didn't invest into a 401k until like 4 years ago. Shame on me. But my before my company was acquired, we had 100% match up to 3%, I think.
Oh, okay.
Something like that. Maybe 4%.
I thought the average is like 5%.
And
You could go up to 6, right?
no, you can do whatever you want.
Oh, the company can do whatever they want?
You just have to pass. I forget what the testing is called, but Basically, the company owner can't get the lion's share of the match money.
Gotcha.
So the safe harbor is I don't know if it's Department of Labor. It's someone's code, and that's where you get 100% of the first 3, and then 50% of the 4th and 5th percent.
Okay.
So if you put in 5, you end up with 9% in total.
Because our company matches up to 7%. Mm-hmm. So
But what percentage do they match at? Do you find out every year then?
I go to HR and ask them constantly every year what they match to. And they usually it's always been 7% since I've worked at the company.
No, so for my company, it's a flat rate, and they say it's an industry average, which I'm curious about. 58%, 58% match of whatever you invest. Is that where are they getting that number from?
There are some plans out there that don't do any match at all.
Yeah.
But I would say industry average is that safe harbor, because that's otherwise you have to submit your plan to testing to make sure it's not top heavy. So if you say safe harbor and that 100% of 3, 50% of 4 and 5, then the Department of Labor isn't coming in and looking at your plan and scrutinizing it.
And they're looking at that because of what part of that is
because if you said it's 100% match whatever you put in, and you're like a regular line worker and you're able to put in $5,000, you get a $5,000 match.
right.
I own the company and I can afford to fully fund it, $28,000, and then profit sharing on top of it. And I put in $58,000 and I get a $58,000 match.
Gotcha. So you're able to take advantage of it more so.
Yeah.
There's probably some controls in there, I would think, for like, like income fraud or tax fraud as well, right? Because that would be how you'd mitigate, being in a lower tax bracket if you're making $5,000, but you're contributing $5,000 to a 401k, right? You're cutting your tax bracket that way. That would be my guess.
No, and it's kosher. If you own your own business, you're their sole employee. I have a couple of clients that we do what's called an owner K. You pick whatever you want to match. And truthfully, you don't really define it at tax time. You say, we're going to put $40,000 into the plan, and $20,000 of it was my money, and $20,000 is a match, which is a business expense, just like you went out and bought $20,000 of equipment. And it makes it's one of the ways to, the fastest way to get wealthy in America is to own a business. The whole tax code is written around carve-outs for that person. As an employee, you basically screwed every which way the tax code can screw you, because you have no control over how much of my income is taxable this year. Once it's on a W-2, it's carved in stone.
So I want to bring back the owner K, but before I do so, when you talk about owning a business, so is there a difference in creating an LLC versus being an independent contractor?
Tax-wise, no. That's all business liability. So if you're so you can have an LLC as an independent contractor.
You could, but if you did not, though,
then you're just a sole proprietor.
Okay.
And if you're in the business and your business got sued, and okay, I have $10,000 in my business bank account, and I just lost a $50,000 case, as a sole proprietor, you have to go into your bank account and make it whole.
Right.
As soon as you get to LLC and higher, okay, you can take everything that the business owns. After that, I'm completely protected.
Gotcha. Is that really the only difference, though? So when it comes to like owner Ks and things like that and the different tax advantages, you can still do those without that LLC?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so investment-wise, I don't really care. I need to know when we create documentation, but it's much more of a legal. And then when you get into corporation, C Corps are their own legal entities, so they can retain asset. They file their own taxes. There's pros and cons to each side of it, but your business structure is largely to protect yourself legally, so you can't lose your house because your business got sued.
Gotcha. All right, so let's get into that owner for that 401 owner K.
Yeah.
Right. Let's combine that. Difference between that and so if I want to start an owner K, is the correct name, right?
Yeah. Okay. You can't have employees. You
can't have employees.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's good to know. And then if I have a 401k with somewhere else, I can pull that money over to my own RK. Is that correct?
Yeah. If you go, it has to go qualified plan to qualified plan.
Okay.
Or that's not entirely true. You can roll it to your new 401k, whether that be a new job or I started my own plan
Okay.
for my own business.
Do you have a certain amount of time that you have to do that in, or is that any time?
No.
And those 401ks that you start with another company, they're basically your account with that company. So it's not like that you're not in danger of putting.
Most of the time, yes. Most places vest your money 100% immediately. Some places have vesting schedules that, like the match, your dollars in are always your dollars.
Right.
The match dollars, if you aren't around long enough, they may claw some of that back.
Gotcha. Yeah, before you're vested.
Yeah,
I think ours did 2 years before you were vested or something.
Right. It's pretty rare to see vesting schedules anymore, but some places do have them.
Cheap companies.
Or if they're using the plan to specifically retain people.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
But the same thing happens with stock options. That's to retain people.
Right.
You can put it into your IRA. You can leave it in that plan, but generally leaving it in an old 401k. If the plan isn't like you move and you don't update to your rest because you never look at the thing, I think it's like 2 years or 3 years. It differs from state by state. They have to turn it over to unclaimed funds.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah.
I did not know that. That's scary.
So I tell people, don't leave your 401k with an old plan unless there's a specific reason to do it.
Gotcha.
You can take it out in lump sum, but then you're getting taxed and penalized for early withdrawal. But generally, you want to move it from one qualified plan to another, whether it be your IRA or your next 401k.
So those are two options. You could roll that directly into your IRA and fill up your yearly IRA.
No, completely separate.
Oh, IRA, completely separate IRA, not your Roth.
Well, if you had Roth money in your 401k, it would go into your Roth account. But a rollover does not exclude new contribution.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Completely different part in the tax code.
Gotcha.
So just new fresh dollars coming in are what you're limited to $7,000 and $8,000 depending on your age.
Gotcha.
But you can roll over $8 million and still put $7,000 into your IRA.
So, and still have the same benefits to it, like as far as pulling it out later and whatnot, right? Interesting. So do you find a lot of people that get their 401k to a certain amount and then roll it into a Roth just because they feel like there's or do they typically, I guess it depends on your 401k and who it's through, but do they typically operate about the same growth?
If you get really, so whether it be Roth or traditional IRA pre-tax, you can own the same, they're just buckets. You can own the same investment in either one.
Gotcha. But with a 401k, you're at the company's discretion for the most part, right?
If they offer Roth inside the 401k, then you get to pick where your percentages go.
Okay.
The match is usually always paid pre-tax. Otherwise, like a Roth match, you'd have phantom income. Like when you put Roth into the 401k, okay, I'm going to put $10,000 in this year, but I'm going to pay tax on $10,000 because I chose not to put it in pre-tax.
Gotcha.
If they paid your match in Roth as well, then you get $8,000 matched on that. You're also going to pay tax on that $8,000.
Okay.
If there is a vesting schedule, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So most of the time, match is always paid pre-tax.
So, and this is interesting because I'm not even 100% sure on my 401k, right? It's like one of those things that you just set it and forget it. And for the most part, I feel like a lot of people are the same way, or at least most new investors.
Have you ever checked it normally, like on a monthly?
I check it once a week.
Okay.
Okay. Which is funny because that's another thing I read today. Like men check their investments like on an average of once a week, where women check them like on it was like literally like every 16 months or something.
See, you check more than me. I have my Roth. I check once a year because I know I'm not going to touch that money until I'm like 65 or older. So, and it's been growing insanely. Because every month I invest $150, and I put down $1,000 when I first opened it, and it's been 5 years, and let's just say I have more than $20,000 in it.
Yeah, it's growing. I mean, it's not as up as much as it was like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
20% or 20, I think 22% versus 15% or whatever. But, obviously that's the ebb and flow. I mean, the market took off like a fucking bat out of hell after Trump got elected. I wish I would have sold some of my fucking crypto, but that just sits there. And like, one day eventually I'll be like, okay, I'm not stupid. I'm going to sell it, but I don't know what day that's going to be.
I have one question. Do you oversee any high yield savings accounts?
We not directly. Those are usually associated with the bank, but I have, whether it be CDs or money market or treasury bonds.
Okay.
It would be, we can earn equivalent interest rates, but it won't be, CDs will be FDIC insured.
Okay.
That's one of the big advantages to high yield savings is FDIC insurance.
Because my friends keep telling me to start doing high yield savings accounts right now, and because I'm young and stuff. But but again, they had, when they started their high yield savings accounts, they had a lot of money to throw into it.
They were good, but the Fed's been cutting interest rates.
Okay.
So I'd be surprised if a high yield savings account was paying, 4%. I think they're starting to get down in the 3s.
That's what I figured. Because I was doing some research, and I think the highest paid one was like a 4.5 right now. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, and a few years ago, it was like paying out like 5-6%.
Yeah, you could get 5 3/4.
Yeah.
But even still, if your investment portfolios are pulling in on average 10-12% based off your portfolio,
and it's volatility. Well, before COVID, high yield savings money market was paying like 1/4%. Mm-hmm. So for that asset class, which is essentially zero risk, to pay 5, that's a free lunch. To earn 10% in the market, you always bear market risk. You get a higher rate of return because of the risk you take on. When interest rates were so high, I'm not taking on any additional risk, but I'm earning 20 times more than what it was paying. So it's comparing apples to apples, not apples to oranges.
I got something a little off topic, but I think it's really important, especially with things that are out there. Obviously, right now, equity loans or equity in houses is higher than it's been in a long time. Mm-hmm. To the point where I was like, you know what? Instead of taking out a loan on a truck or taking out a loan on or just paying cash for my barn or whatever, I was like, I'm just going to take out some of this equity and take advantage of it. But something that you and I talked about once before, and I'm interested in your opinion. If I spend that cash and pay for those things, that's gone. You and I mentioned something about you could put it into some form of an account and then use that to make the monthly installments, because let's say you're paying a 5 or 6% interest rate and you're earning a 10 or 12% return. Now, obviously, there's a risk that it goes down and you lose.
But if you had like a balloon payment, where you had to make a lump sum at some point in time, you wouldn't want to do it. But you borrow money for a car at 5, 6, or 7 years. Yeah, I guarantee you it'll be worth less at some point in time. But in the other 4, 5, or 6 years, it's going to be worth more.
Right.
The experience that I've had, usually we can get it to work out that you're somewhere, like when you're done, you still have 20% of your purchase price left in the account. And I challenge clients all the time, you want to pay cash for it because you want it out of sight, out of mind. But pay over time because you're going to out earn, and especially like when they offer teaser rates at 1% and 2%.
Yeah,
it's like shooting fish in a barrel of fish. But it's if you can walk into the dealership and negotiate a 20% discount on the purchase price, let's pay cash for it. But we know that that's not happening. You can have 20% left in the end, and that's basically the same thing. And it's all time value. You can give your money to a bank, and if you want to use it again, you have to beg them to give it back to you. Or you can have all the money to pay the loan off immediately, but choose when and where and how you pay it back. So it's, you keep the eggs in your basket, you're always going to be in better shape.
So what kind of account are you investing that into? Is it just a traditional, is it something?
Oh, no. So that would just go into a regular brokerage account if you're near retirement or in retirement, then that can be your retirement account because we're not penalized for withdrawing from it anymore.
Gotcha. Let's say it's $100,000. You put $100,000 into your brokerage account, and you're making your $2,000 truck payment out of every month. Mm-hmm. is that, what are the penalties on that?
Just your capital gains tax.
So off of the overall account. So for instance,
No, just on, so your 100 turns into 200 over the life of the loan, but then we draw 100 back out.
am I getting taxed on it every time, or every time I'm making that truck payment? Am I paying that 15%?
Depends.
Yeah.
If the market is going like gangbusters, yes, you're paying tax every time. If the market is normal, the old analogy, you buy 5 investments, one is going to be skyrocketed, one's going to be in the dumps, one's going to do nothing, and one's going to be slightly good, the other one's going to be slightly bad. Next year, they're going to reverse, and the one that was terrible is going to be your strongest performer, just the cyclical nature of things. You can cancel your gains and losses to raise cash, and we can get distributions, but it will concentrate the gain left in the account. So when we finally do sell what's left, we have more tax to pay at that point in time. But if you're not ever going to draw it all out, then we never have to deal with that tax monster at the bottom of the account. And then if you die, it all gets erased. So when it comes to estate money, a lot of times generationally, you want to have huge unrealized capital gains. And knock on wood, the tax law says right now, as soon as the day you die, so does all your capital, your unrealized capital gain. So yes, you will pay some tax making those payments, but it won't be all of the tax making those payments. And that the biggest difference with real estate to regular investments is you can't just sell the kitchen.
Right.
You got to sell the whole thing.
Right.
Where, you own 100 shares and we bought it 5 different times. I can go back in and say, we want to sell the 20 most expensive shares because that will create the least tax liability, but then that concentrates the gain in the rest. Or this year I have low income and I'm not going to be in the capital gains. I'm going to be in the 0% bracket. Okay, now we're going to go sell the most taxable shares because we're not going to pay tax on it anyway. So it's all trying to figure out how to work through the loopholes. And they're not loopholes, they're written directly into the tax code. It's just knowing that they're there and recognizing how to take advantage of them.
No, but this is obviously something. And I mean, most of the stuff that you're saying, like it's literally like between over my head and like just under it, like because obviously there's a ton of stuff that like I don't deal with on a daily basis that you do, that you understand, right?
Yeah.
I think that's where a lot of people, when they're looking for a financial advisor, this is a conversation I feel like is an exact reason.
Yeah.
Because yeah, the simple part of me says like, dude, just go out and pay cash, be done with these things, and then you don't have to worry about it. But at the same point in time, if I could be making money, while I'm driving a depreciating asset, or while I'm, for somebody younger, establishing the credit line while still putting money aside, it's not costing them to borrow funds.
Yeah.
Those can be win-win scenarios. You worry about that, like I said, that long term. So you could do that, and then it wouldn't be until you took out those profits where you would really see that percentage. But at the same point in time, if you were going to spend that money and pay cash for something anyhow, like what are you even worried about pulling anything back from it? Like you were going to spend it anyway.
Right.
And you still have the overall asset on top of that that's now owned.
Yeah.
Right. So.
And I always, well, I don't know. I like picking good investments. I'm pretty reasonable at it. I have a lot of shoulders that I can stand on that feed me information. I get really excited about taking advantage of the tax code because, there's some still dumb luck to, yeah, this is a great investment. Did you buy it at the perfect time or did you buy it at an okay time? We don't have a lot of control there. So that's one of the things that I like to focus on. Worry about what you can control. Don't think about what you can't. And I'm always against trying to, let's avoid as much capital gain as possible. But at the same time, one of my favorite sayings is like, I'm an unapologetic dealer of capitalism. If you're paying capital gains, you're winning. You've won capitalism.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you're obviously doing what you're supposed to be doing in order to pay that.
Right. But now, how do we,
pay less
we'll pay some tax, but how do we minimize our exposure there?
Sure. Yeah, that's definitely one of those things that you find that there's these little loopholes, or not, not loopholes, but like cheat codes.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
this, for instance, conversation we're having. Are there other things offhand that do people do that with real estate now? Like, are people taking out, like, let's say, I own 3 or 4 homes. I've had, like, David, for instance, I wish he was in here. Maybe we'll wait just actually a second to bring this up, because I'd like to hear his opinion on it. But are there other aspects to where there's ways do people do this on their daily bills and things like that? Do you see people over there like, hey, I'm just going to invest my monthly, bills worth into there and then have it come out of there? Is that not beneficial as much?
No, because you need something that's got a term to it, because your bills are going to go on indefinitely.
Right.
We just need that as cash flow.
Okay.
It's deciding when we can pay something, when it's a car loan or not as much of a mortgage, but if we're doing like a bridge loan between properties, yeah, we'll do the same thing there. So it has to be time limited, otherwise it doesn't make a lot of sense anymore.
Gotcha.
We're just deferring something that we're always going to have to pay.
Before you so rudely had to use the pisser, we're talking about, obviously using equity or using just large cash amounts. I'm sure, you being in real estate, you have clients where, they can afford to spend $60,000 on a rental property and pay cash for it, but it might be more beneficial for them to put that into an account that's, and obviously if they're millionaires, I'm sure they already have people telling them this stuff to do, but like, you have that money sitting there and you could be taking out loans on this property through your LLC and different things and having it pay out through that way, and still capturing that gain in the market and not really paying those interest rates in a sense, instead of making money off of it. But what I was going to ask was, do you have people who are taking advantage of like equity and rental properties and things like that to buy more properties and then do something similar with that money, like instead of paying cash for the property?
So there's a rebranded loan product out there that's exactly for this. It's called a DSCR loan, and I'm not exactly sure what those stand for at the moment here. We could look it up. But
yeah, look it up while you're talking.
All right. But essentially what this product is usually like, it'd be the equivalent to like a hard money loan, would be the old school term for it.
Debt service.
That's what it is.
Coverage ratio.
That's what it is. So essentially you're taking a product that is going to be an investment property, and they're going to base the value of the home off of the potential rent collection. So it's just it's a leverage tool. The interest rates are going to be higher because the loan secures the property, of course, or the other way around. The property secures the loan, but you're generally doing short term, and there is an element of risk. You rent the house out, and they destroy the house, and there's definitely risk there. But so the rates are higher, but you're going to pay it off sooner, and you're generally, depending on what your financial picture is, you're probably somewhere around 20. If your financial picture is really good, you're probably at 20-25%. If you're brand new, you're probably going to put half down. So it's a leverage thing. So yeah, if you have a couple mil sitting in an account that you're playing with, you can go out and buy $2 million worth of property, or that's $2 million worth of down payments on properties. And so, your portfolio could be, 6 or 7 million in that case. So a lot of these investors have come out of the woodwork since, 2020, started a little bit in 2019, but really into 2020 as rents started climbing. So
interesting. And then what about on your side of things, Austin? Are people are people doing a similar thing with mortgages, I guess is what I'm asking? Is that an advantage? Like, obviously you have a fixed rate on a fixed term.
Well, the biggest benefit with a mortgage is in the United States is different than a lot of places in the world. There's no, they don't inflation adjust. Your payment's $1,200 a month today. It'll be $1,200 a month in 30 years, and you'll be lucky to buy lunch McDonald's for $1,200 at that point in time. So it becomes less and less of a percentage of your total budget, monthly budget, annual budget. When people are looking to pay off early, I encourage them to not do that, especially if they have one of the older, if you have a sub 3%, you should pay that out to the very last payment. The cost of that borrowing is compared to, current interest rates. You don't even have to take risk. You just go buy a 4% CD, a 5% municipal bond, and you're making money.
Wow.
On the other side of it, I mean, anyone that I know that's been successful in real estate, like the biggest advantage with real estate is you can get such an excellent leverage ratio. Like I can lend on clients' investments up to 50 cents on the dollar, but realistically, it's more like 33 cents on the dollar, where banks are happy to lend 80, 90 if you've got a good relationship. So in real estate, and I mean, there's all sorts of tax benefits there. You shouldn't ever be using, the whole point is to not use your money to build out your portfolio.
Gotcha.
Once you own everything, you're kind of retired in that business.
Yeah.
Awesome. Evan, what about you? Got any other questions, buddy?
No, I got nothing for right now. I
might have some.
Yeah.
All right, you got some things you want to bring up down there, David, to steer the direction of the conversation maybe away from this aspect and have a little fun for a little bit?
Sure.
Right, what you got?
You guys been following the fires out in California?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, to a degree.
Oh, I've been watching the news on it, listening to radio about it. That's my scope of following it.
So basically what they want you to know.
Yeah.
So you don't know that they burned all the houses down that had Diddy evidence in them.
Oh, God.
No, but I mean, I've followed it. I mean, I've heard about we talked about it a little bit last night about the fucking houses that are being taken out, celebrities and things like that are losing these houses.
Harrison Ford was not happy.
I did not know, this is something I learned from you, that, I do know in Hawaii, like, depending on the island, there's different insurance zones, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I did not realize that the area that's being destroyed right now there's fire zones with insurance, and that you and I talked about a different type of insurance for those homes.
So this is aside from, this is newsworthy, I think this is going to be really interesting to track from a financial perspective. And, we don't want to put on our tinfoil hats. And I mean, we could do that too.
We got hats on already.
This is, you just started wearing hats, first of all. But
I'll bring that back up again, please. I don't want to hear about him picking the weeds in the beds.
Wearing the hat.
Wearing the hat.
Yeah. Yeah, so California is pretty interesting in that California's got its own ecosystem. So let's start with that. It's a population of 40 million people. It's our most populated state. It's 15% of the population of the country. That doesn't even include the people that are transient there. So that number is probably even much higher. But and to put this ecosystem into a perspective, if California was a sovereign nation on its own, it would be the number 5 economy in the world. It would be above India. It would be above the UK and France. So in that ecosystem, you've got all these businesses, you got jobs, you've got homes, you got an education system, you have investments, and you have weather. And this is where I think things get really, really interesting in all of this. So all these fires are burning in several different parts. It's burning extremely expensive neighborhoods. That's the only way I could put it. Pacific Palisades, there's over 1,000 homes gone. They don't even know. They don't know. The death toll, I think, is at 20 as of today. And they haven't even started with the cadaver dogs or any of that stuff yet. So one neighborhood, 1,000 plus homes that they know are gone. I think all throughout LA County, it's something like 12,000 structures. So you also have, we can talk about homes. And then when you talk about Pacific Palisades, the average home price there and in Malibu is $3.5 million. But when you start talking about commercial buildings, now we're into $70 million, $80 million. You're talking, these numbers are going to go up. So the total damage that the AP is estimating right now, just based on, there's something like, I think 20% containment as a whole right now. They're estimating somewhere north of $150 billion natural quote unquote disaster here.
Oh, quote unquote. I read earlier, I saw estimates 33 to 250 billion now.
It's a massive range because they don't know.
Right.
They don't know
the extent of the damage too.
So rewinding back in California history, and for those that don't know, Will and I both have a connection to California. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, so in solidarity, I went to my LA hat today for everybody out there. And but rewinding back a little bit in California history, in 2018 they had the Camp Fire there, which pretty much destroyed this city called Paradise, California, which today is not paradise at all. Most people have never heard of the city. It's kind of northeastern California. But this, I just watched an interview with the mayor of Paradise, who has been the mayor there for years, and they're just now starting to put residents back in homes. Like he talked about a couple interesting things. He said that their population has been roughly 15% after the fire. This is 2018, so this is now 7 years ago.
Yeah.
They basically laid off their police departments. They laid off most of the fire department. And, of course, when you do that, you invite all kinds of other sorts of problems in there. But yeah, like this is a pretty small fire in comparison to, and I say that, they lost something. I think they lost somewhere around 10,000 complete structures in that fire, but it was tiny compared to this. 12.5 billion is their cost, as opposed to this thing that they're looking at in the hundreds of billions of dollars. So back to the one thing you and I were talking about had to do with insurance. So here's another interesting thing. If you could believe this, Allstate, Chubb, Farmers, you guys have heard of those insurance companies, right? These companies have stopped, or they've dramatically limited insurance in California. So all over the last several years, they've just been canceling people
without them telling them about it.
Oh no, you have to inform them.
No, but California has been regulating the insurance market, and they've been basically instilling cost controls. They're not allowed to raise their cost of insurance. So the insurers are exiting the market.
So they did this because in some cases, so I was looking at grassroots.
Can I interrupt real quick?
Go for it.
I want to make sure I understand that right. So you're saying, like, for instance, if values of property and stuff like that go up, you're saying that the insurance company is not allowed to
in California
adjust that in California for the.
The state came in and said, I don't know what the number is, so I'm just going to make it up, that you can only raise the cost of insurance by 5% a year.
Wow. So in a year, like, for instance, 2 years ago when property raised percentages, I mean, at least in Ohio, property went up 10 to 12% on average.
Yeah.
So
we'll have to double check that, because there's one. I mean, I personally know a lot of Californians, and their rates have gone up dramatically. And there's one woman who was just on the news just a few days ago, and she was showing her bills she at her own expense just put a new roof on her house. That was kind of her story. She's like, I just put this roof on, it cost me $30,000. And this is in Poway, which is in San Diego County. They just had a massive fire down there a few years ago. Her rate went from $1,400 per year to $4,000 per year in, I think, 3 years. So that's definitely above 5% per year. So, so we can look further into that. But here's the thing that I think is really spooky and really interesting here.
tinfoil hat time.
Yeah, let's put those on. Let's see if we can really get ourselves
You should get
canceled
some
here
for
now.
the show.
Yes, and we should definitely have those.
Are you
and then
gonna-
we should have music that plays when it comes on, and like the light should flicker.
Now, David, are you going to talk about the insurance companies dropping a lot of the insurance company dropping the insurers
yeah.
a few weeks before the fire happened?
Are you stealing thunder right now?
I'm sorry. I'm guessing because I've heard multiple reports about that on the radios about that.
Yeah, so there's been a lot. So what's interesting, I spent a good chunk of my day today on this topic because on one of the other channels, I'm working on a video for an upcoming trip, and here's the thing that got really interesting and really spooky when I started looking at a lot of the media coverage. This has been a hot topic before the fire started and throughout all of last year. The California State Insurance Commissioner is a guy who's like in the news almost daily out there. Well, right now especially, but throughout last year because of all the lawsuits, because of all the increase in premiums, and all of this. But right now in the news with all of this, climate change is the big topic, right? Like, oh, we got this. We have atmospheric rivers coming in. We have this, we have that. We have hotter, drier years and all of that stuff. Did you guys know that for the last 10 years, there's been lobbies that have been pushing for climate-based insurance premium management? That's a bunch of words put together.
I did not hear about that ever.
Yeah.
So hold on, insurance premium management.
So
there's like pharmaceutical companies basically telling you how much your insurance company can charge for medicine, except they can tell you how much to.
So believe this or not, there's this model that they created for looking at potential future disasters that are prediction based.
Sure.
So, we're going to sit in a room and we're going to say, okay, well, in the year 2030, we can expect that there's going to be this amount of damage that's going to be caused in this neighborhood over here. And that's going to just be based on climate control. Wow. 10, 20, 30 years down the road.
So I have an article here pulled up, and this is, I don't know when this is from. Let's see where I'm looking at. It's probably like conspiracy.us.com.
2021. It looked like August of 2021.
No, because it's December of this year.
Oh, maybe it was the image that was there.
Yeah. So a couple of interesting things. Here's one. And let's see what this rolls into place. It's because of insurance companies leaving is kind of the base of the story. So one of the rules is that it'll require insurers to offer coverage in high risk areas. So basically, you have to have 85% of new insured people that you bring in. You have to have 85% of them be inside of these wildfire areas, you want to call them, or whatever, high impact areas, right? So,
this is the new regulation. So what you're talking about is coming. So
So insurers will start increasing their coverage by 5% every 2 years until they hit the equivalent of 85% of their market share. That means an insurer writes 20 out of 100 state policies. They need to write 17 in a high risk area, which is interesting because that's to say that 85% of the state is in a high risk area. Like, that's kind of high. Well, I mean, I guess I mean, obviously part of that is the fact that have like places like Malibu and stuff are in high density populated areas, ton of houses on the property, but still I thought that was interesting. So in exchange, increasing coverage, the state will let insurance companies pass on the cost of reassurance to California consumers. So this is the thing where if you're in these high impact areas, you can have reinsurance to basically insure the insurance company, is the way that it's explained to me.
Right. The consumer doesn't do the reinsurance. The insurance company packages all the insurance and then sells it off for reinsurance.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. And then the insurance and there's usually benefits in reassurance, I would imagine, because like in the auto industry, we reinsure warranties and things like that where you're going outside, et cetera. And yeah.
So as these folks got their policies canceled, then they created the fair insurance policy. Now, that's not a homeowner's policy. That's just for fire. So, and it's expensive. It's really, really expensive.
Well, so it says opponents of the rule say that it could hike premiums as much as 40%.
I think that's low.
New policy to be written as the fair enough pace. At a fair enough pace. Oh, no, that's what I was looking for.
Yeah. So now here's the next issue here is that, so the fair insurance plan it's completely independent. It's not government backed or anything. It has funding in there to cover $30 billion.
You're talking about the Fair Act.
The fair insurance policy.
Correct.
Yes.
Which is what this is trying to end.
Yeah.
By the
But
way.
okay, so this right here, so the date on that was December, right? And then then the wind kicks up and holy fuck, look at what just happened. So now the new problem, and this is, I guess now we're getting down to dessert here since, we just ate, is they don't actually know, but they think that the fair plan is good for about $32 billion right now. Remember the numbers we started at the top,
Sure.
150 billion and so on. I mean, we can do some simple mathematics. 1,000 homes at $3.5 million on average, like
Pretty much burns through it.
that's one, and that's one city. That's just one city. So that's now. So here's what happens when that money. Do you guys have any idea what happens when that money runs
Government
out?
takes over?
No,
No.
it's worse.
What? Ooh.
It's even worse than that. Well, the government did take over, so yeah.
Wasn't it 100% guaranteed for as much as you need for the next 180 days? Yeah.
Well, that's for reimbursement. So here's what happened. So they passed this in California last year, ironically. So the additional cost. So let's say, they're good for 32 billion. Let's say it's 40 billion, 50. Let's say it's 150 billion. That's going to get redistributed to all of the other insurance providers in California. So that means that if, like my father, for instance, who lives an hour away from where these fires are burning, his insurance premium is going to go up to cover everybody else in California. That's how that's going to work.
Wow.
They passed a law, and I'm not quoting it perfectly. We can have another pod as this stuff comes out. But
So
that's,
everybody gets 1,000% increase, I'm guessing?
could be. There is a cap. It's something. There is a cap to it, but it's thousands of dollars that are going to get added on.
But this is what it goes back to. So why the insurance companies were leaving California, that risk. But so if you want to come to market, the California Department of Insurance must approve all rates for property and casualty before you're even allowed to start doing business. And then price controls, regulators must approve proposed premium increases, and insurers must justify the rate increases to the California Department of Insurance.
So they could say no if they don't feel justified in the reason for it.
And here's
And
where
do you sorry, before we do that, do you not have to do that in most other states? Insurance companies do.
I think there's rate review when you want to come to market.
Yeah.
But no, there's been a lot of hail damage. We need to raise rates. They just raise rates.
Right.
They don't have to go to the state and say, please, can we, adjust things for the risks that we're bearing.
So it's funny because you would almost think that that's a good thing, right, for the consumer.
Oh yeah, it's great for the consumer until
But it's not working,
you
right?
squeeze the insurance company so hard they just say, fuck it, we're not doing business in California anymore.
So then they're having this problem in other areas where they've got, weather phenomenon, tornadoes and stuff. So Texas, Oklahoma,
Florida,
Tornado Alley,
hurricanes.
Florida is another one too. Where
Florida,
they've had
I'd
that.
imagine. Like I can't even imagine what homeowners insurance is like in Florida because that fucking place is getting hit with a hurricane like every 6 months.
Yep.
You pay big, and then I think it'll only ever insure up to 80% of the value.
Wow.
So you're always on the line for 20%.
Is that the entire state or is that like in just
I
a
think
certain
like
areas?
the coastal areas.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's wild.
I will stay in Ohio where it snows and it's cold.
Yeah, you sound like my wife. Although it's been snowing for a week. I'm about done with this shit. Okay, I want to see. I posted something the other day. I was like, everybody has a fucking talking about climate change. Okay, I haven't seen sunshine in a week. Obviously, I live in Ohio. I expect it to be gray and glum and gloom and fucking all that shit. So, guess what? The climate isn't changing enough to make me happy. When it's 75 degrees and Lake Erie's 70 degrees,
on oceanfront property.
Yeah. Then I will gladly admit to climate change. Okay, but. What else do you have to add there, brother?
Maybe Greenland's the answer. Like if we get Greenland, like that'd be cool.
That's why Uncle Donnie's so hard up for it.
Dude, Uncle Don's so freaking genius.
Yeah.
It's great. It's funny because did you see what's the governor of PA? What's his name? Federer.
No, he's the senator.
Is he the senator? Yeah.
Fetterman.
Did you see the interview that he gave?
I saw. I know he said something that was kind of crazy and not in line with what the Democrats would normally
100%.
think.
It was funny because I can't remember what show I was watching. I think it was what's that podcast that we were just talking about the other day, David, where he had the home team?
Patrick Bet David. PBD.
Yeah. Where they were talking about it, and they're like, you might as well just put an R next to his name or whatever, because he said something. He's like, look, well, obviously he was talked about during the interview. He's like, yeah, of course I'm going to work with Trump. Like I don't think all his ideas are bad. And
He's
goes,
scheduled to go to Mar-a-Lago to meet with him.
It makes sense. And then he mentioned, he's like, people look at these ideas and they think they're just crazy. Like, but was the Louisiana Purchase crazy, or was the acquisition of Alaska from Russia crazy? He's like, there's benefits to acquiring Greenland that's beneficial to us, but it's also beneficial to the people of Greenland. And he talked about, the big thing being the mining that would take place of the country. And
I thought, is there a bunch of lithium in Greenland?
It's all the stuff to essentially make batteries. It's like they just called it like what is the word that they use for it? But yes, it's the stuff that you need. I think it might even be like.
There's also precious metals there. I heard.
Well, that's what it is. It's precious metals and things like that.
Yeah.
They don't say specifically, or at least they didn't in this conversation that I was having. But the way that he was breaking it is like China's already been trying to buy the mineral rights for like 2 or 3 years or longer, maybe.
And like half of Africa.
Yeah.
Which is the next place that's outrageously rich with that kind of thing.
Correct. Yeah. And then you look at what's going on in the Congo right now, and I've talked about the book before that I read. I wish I could remember the name of it off the top of my head, but the guy spent like 5 or 6 years in the Congo, like watching how this whole system works for the mining of cobalt and stuff like that. And, you have all these companies that are essentially, they go hire the local people for nothing. And then they're kicking back up to the people that are buying it for nothing. And then ultimately those companies are owned by Chinese. And what he said was, he's like, the people of Greenland, like if China buys those mineral rights, they have a population of 58,000 people there. They're going to send essentially 70 to 100,000 immigrants over there to work in these mines. They're not going to send over people making $30 an hour. They're not going to go over there and build these people like 2-bedroom houses to live in with their families. They're going to be living in like the shittiest of shit. And this is, he didn't say it like this. He just kind of alluded to it, but he's like, they're going to be living in horrible conditions. They're going to be underpaid. They're not going to be protected. And more importantly, they're not going to bring anything to Greenland, right? These people aren't going to be helping develop the city, helping spend money there, So there's no benefit to the country of Greenland itself. China just wins. And then the other aspect of that too is now you give access to China. North of us, you already are allowing, and the other thing he mentioned is like, people don't realize this, but that's like a playground for Russia submarines. Like they're all over the place up there. And we've talked about that book, Nuclear War by Annie Jacobson, where she's like, a nuclear submarine could literally be 20 feet offshore in North Carolina and we wouldn't have a fucking clue. Like that's how well the stealth works on those things.
Maybe the Chinese. I don't buy the Russians.
But so, yeah, obviously the idea that we could acquire Greenland would be fucking awesome because, one, it would help us with our national security, especially north of Canada. I mean, Canada's not going to stop anything.
We're already the military there. So we have a base there. But
through
NATO, that's a NATO protected country. You
Makes
said
sense.
population's 58,000.
I think that's what they said.
Where do you think they land on the cousin fucking spectrum?
Oh God.
Very high, higher than
Oh
Iceland.
Jesus.
Much higher than Iceland.
Don't worry. We'll come there. We'll take
I
care
gotta
of
go
that
back
problem.
and cut that out of the last video and post that because that's fucking. I forgot about that. That was hilarious. People just do not realize the amount of incest that happens in these other countries that we think are awesome. Which they are to visit.
I mean, it's not our cousin, so
That's true.
But I mean, I've never been to Greenland. I have no desire to go to a country covered with snow and ice. I mean, I think it's pretty like 30 days out of the year, maybe. I don't know.
I'd say let's go, man.
But I mean, if we can acquire it and you can acquire Canada too, why not?
Yeah.
No, I want to go to a place in Alaska that it's a remote place that's that one building is on the land, and the whole population lives in this one building. There's a grocery store, a school, everything.
Oh yeah.
I want to check that. And there's actually a hotel on the very top floor.
Well, we're a visitor
Nook.
stay.
It's called Nook, Alaska.
Okay, yeah, I've heard about that.
Northernmost.
It's not the northernmost, but that's another village up there. Like I'm a big nut for the Yes Theory guys, and they just visited Nook. There's also one of the other YouTube vloggers I follow has been up there as well. But yeah, this one building holds but there's a couple shacks and stuff. But yeah, there's a tunnel that you have to travel through to get to this place. It's really remote. And they used to have cruise ships coming in and out of there, but the cruise ships don't stop there anymore. But it is pretty unique. But yeah, it's literally like a condo building, and it has an underground tunnel that goes to a school, and it's pretty interesting.
Obviously, you listen to all this stuff that's going on. Like, are there benefits to our country's financial well-being to these that you can see on the outside, or is it too early to tell?
So the first thing that popped up in my mind is the politics of it. I don't think everyone's saying, "Oh, Canada will become these extra states." I don't think we give them statehood. They become like territories, like Puerto Rico, because then we have, what are there, 10 provinces in Canada?
Yeah.
So now we have 20 new senators, and how many more representatives, and how does that shake up legislation? And
Well, the other aspect too, and I think you and I talked about this Christmas Eve, is like, what is it, 90% of their population is within
lives within 50 miles.
So
of the
like
US
a lot of
border.
those territories, how are you going to split them up to where they're getting equal representation?
Yeah.
Because some of them will literally have nobody living there. I mean, it'd be great for us to like just go over there and take advantage of the hunting.
I was literally about to say the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's some advantages to Americans to acquiring Canada, but
Put it all in one state, call it East Alaska.
but yeah, so I guess that's one part of it. I didn't think about, would they give them statehood, or would they just be a territory? I don't know what the benefit. I don't even know what being a territory gets Puerto Rico. Honestly, they don't get to vote.
No, they don't get to vote. I think they have their own constitution. The almighty dollar, you get to.
They get to use it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Legitimately. I mean, everywhere uses the dollar. I don't know. I don't know what else there is. I was sleeping during that part of civics sophomore year in high school.
Yeah, I don't remember any of high school civics classes at all, or
Same.
or history for that matter. It wasn't until later in life that I became interested in history, which is intriguing.
So my tinfoil hat theory. So they're working. Trump wants one cohesive bill to put all his policies in place, and they've been working on that right now. And I think a lot of we're buying Greenland, and Canada's going to become states, and the Gulf of America and all that kind of stuff. I think he's got some good people in place now that are feeding him the things to say that anyone else says it and they're like, yeah, sure. He says it, people believe it.
Yeah.
And I think it provides good cover, so they're not scrutinizing what all of the Republicans are looking to do with that bill right at the moment. So, I mean, he's always been an excellent showman, but I think now he's actually got, as opposed to like winging it the first time, he's got good staff behind him. And I think it might be a lot of cover to get that worked through without too much scrutiny in the media until it comes time to vote for it.
Yeah, we haven't had you on since. And honestly, I haven't even been paying attention to politics really since the election took place because I was like, "Sweet, the hard part's over with. I'll just wait till January."
Why would you?
Yeah. But what are some of the policies that he's going to try to interact?
Well, I don't even know what's in there.
No,
like
they're not.
Like the media isn't even
They're not
addressing
even,
it right now.
well, because they're talking about Greenland and Canada.
Yeah.
Which I agree. I do think that there's some benefits to Greenland that's a possibility.
Yeah.
I think there's something to that. I don't think there's anything to Canada. I think he just fucking wanted to troll Justin
he's
Trudeau.
completely.
Well, no,
trolling
I mean,
him.
we said we're going to put 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico, and now we had, Canada has always been a very close ally, and now our communist neighbor to the north comes down to personally resign at Mar-a-Lago,
Yeah.
more or less, and Mexico said, okay, we'll actually shut our southern border. The desired effects were immediate.
Sure.
I think there's something else with the Trudeau thing too, because I think it has to do with him not. It's definitely politics related inside the party. I think that let's call him the Kamala of Canada. Really, is I think that like I don't think he was going to win again, and he's like bowing out right now while he can. He's pulling a Seinfeld. He's like pulling the cord when it looks like things are going okay. I think.
So they don't have terms.
Right.
Chris, we should bring Chris Canadian.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I was joking with him. I'm like, I know 2 Canadians. Because I'll ask him about Canadian stuff. And he's like, I don't even know. I'm like, I know 2 Canadians. You're the most knowledgeable. But he was telling me that the prime minister doesn't have a term in Canada. They just randomly decide when they're going to have an election. And I think the party's pushing him because I think they can pull like a no faith vote on him.
Yeah, I saw something about that the other day because that was where I just learned that they have he can be fucking.
Yeah, you can be president for like 20 years.
Yeah.
And you never call for re-election, or you get everything in your favor and say, okay, now I'm going to win. It's time for an election.
Yeah, I think he just really has done some things up there that the Canadian people don't like, and it's like.
Well, they have a big housing issue. Like it's
I'm
as
sure
bad as housing is here in the cities up there. It's
and
outrageous.
expensive.
Yeah,
super. While you're looking that up, Will, I just want to make sure, like, just in case there's any curiosity, the cousin fucking in Canada is pretty minimal.
Well, hold on. That's because you're taking into consideration like Toronto, Quebec.
well, they're all
Like go out
90% within 50 miles.
Go 100 miles up.
Oof, no way. Well, maybe,
you're right. The cousin fucking might be down, but I have a feeling there's some fucking
the polar
goats.
bear fucking.
Yeah. There's some goats and some freaking wild animals that wish there was more people. I can tell you that.
As part of the podcast, I want to see you guys put together a cousin fucking index just
the number one states
every
or
week.
Countries.
No, every week a new country gets
So
added to the
for
index.
everybody that's still tuned in here at 2.5 hours into this here, this has come from earlier podcast where we've talked about our experience traveling to Iceland, which has got an incest problem. So this is not a fixation or anything in us. We're just we're just being clowns. Womp womp womp. Funny.
But when we were in Iceland, a lot of people came up to us when we were wearing those shirts. It's talking about that is true.
Yes.
Everybody said it was true. It was
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
I never had so many people proudly admit that their country is known for fucking cousins.
Well, they don't have enough people,
No,
No, they don't.
No.
so they have to do it until there's enough that they're not your cousin anymore.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, I'll give the country. I mean, I'll give the politics of that country a lot of credit for coming up with an app.
Yeah.
So that you can at least try to limit it to like your third or fourth cousin.
Yeah. Necessity breeds innovation. No pun intended with breed.
It's funny because first of all, bars are not what I remember them being when I was in my 20s. We were at in Lakewood last week around the corner, and
God.
I remember like even 10 years ago, like you go in there and there's like a lot of cute girls that would be in there, cool little vibe, whatever. Not the case. And the men, I wouldn't even call them men. The guys that were in there are very, very interesting to say the least. Whatever.
Good people watching.
Anyhow.
I love people watching last night. It was so interesting.
But it was funny because like I started thinking about Iceland. We were watching that one guy who like he was trying so hard for this girl. And she was down for it, but her friend was seriously fucking putting the fucking cock block on him. Like she was blowing it up hard. So they like disappeared, and you could see the look of fear on his face that he was gonna have to go home alone tonight. So then he like calmly looks around, and he moves up to the dance floor to this other girl, and she wasn't having it either. So he goes back to his little zone. And David and I were like, we're just laughing. And I'm like, dude, there's just 3 fat chicks up there. How long before he gives them a shot? So it's like 5-6 minutes go by. And like, you can see this dude like just biting his fucking teeth, like thinking through it. And he's like, fuck it. I need it that bad. And he's like, he goes up to the fat chick. I mean, and I don't mean just overweight. Like, I mean like obese and not something. So he goes up to him and he starts talking to him, and like just as he does it, the girl that he was originally dancing with like 20 minutes before that walked back in, and you can just see the look of relief on his face. Like, oh, I still got a shot at
Back
this.
in the game.
This time he grabs his buddy in it, and he's like, dude, and you could just see it because it played out where like his buddy was doing everything he could to like keep this chick away from him, from stopping it up. But it was like, God, dude, I don't miss the games like that, but it was fucking funny. And then I was like, man, in Iceland, like, do they like, oh, sorry, you're my second cousin, and then like come 2:30, well actually there it's like 4:30 a.m. Like, you know, like my eyes are a little blurry. Maybe that's a 4, not a 2.
And how bad could it be?
Yeah. What's the worst that could happen? That's what my parents did, you know?
I like that, like, you know, when we met the one girls on the street, we got to have some video of that somewhere where like they were telling us that story of like, oh yeah, no, she had to move because her cousin wouldn't leave her alone.
No, she wouldn't stop fucking her cousin. Her parents made her move. Yeah. And she was so upset because she wanted her cousin so bad. I was like, God. First cousin, she made sure to point out.
So last night, yeah, and I, you know, sorry to be so shallow, but like, yeah, just like, you know, as a single man, look in the room in there, it's like, well, at least this is entertaining. Like, you know, I did not spot any potential.
There was no attractive girls there that I thought there. You had one. You spotted one the whole night.
1.5, I would say. There was a half, but I'm going to be honest, Evan. Because there's one time when I looked and I saw you kind of looking, and I got the feeling that like, okay, Evan would take that one home if all of us weren't there to witness it.
Hey, it all depends when the last time I got laid was. That depends.
That's a fair schedule to keep.
I'm willing to jump in the water a little bit, get my stick dirty a little bit.
Were you about to say something about
No.
Iceland?
Yeah, I want to go back to the app. Like, what's proper etiquette? Like, when you first meet someone, like, hey, we got to look at the app. Or is it, like, too presumptive?
I don't know. Yeah, I know. Right. Like, when do
or
you
do you
decide?
put in all the work and then check the app like, oh, fuck.
So this is it. So
Or, like, I guess it would depend on how desperate you just go around and, like...
in the room, yeah.
Does it set off alerts when somebody is, like, your fifth cousin? You're like, fuck yeah.
No. The one girl told us how it went. And she's like, you go to these family events and you get your phone out and you tap each other's phones and it tells you how far of like a generation are you?
Okay.
And I'm like thinking to myself, holy fuck.
So if your first cousin's really hot, you grab your friend's phone?
Second cousins now.
We're good.
Oh, sweet. Yeah. So, you know, we're living in hookup culture, and like a lot of European countries, they're very liberal sexually, and Iceland is like at the very top of this. And there's more women than men there, at least in Reykjavik. You get in the outskirts is a little different, but they're pretty aggressive there, and they don't really. I mean, you do your own research. There's a ton of videos on this. Like, they don't really date. They allow sex to start relationships there, as opposed to the other way around. So it's ideal, right, Evan?
Oh yeah.
When are we going back? Oh,
no, but we could go back next year. I got some friends that want to go.
We can go this year. Oh. It's only January. There's plenty of time.
True.
It's only a 5-hour flight.
That's true.
So easy.
And
all right, we're going. We'll do a weekend. That's an easy weekend trip. I mean, shit, I'm about to spend 5 hours to go out to Cali for a weekend. So we can do Iceland.
Closer than Vegas.
Yeah, exactly.
Sold.
Shit.
But so they have to have this app because they have to know, because they're using Tinder and all of those to meet up. And like, they're just very quick. I mean, just about it, like, out for some drinks and whatever. And like that night, like they want to figure it out physically before any of it. But before that, yeah, they've got to bump phones before they bump each other so that,
Well, that girl that came up to us was telling us, like, we were like, what do you do here? And this is like a 19-year-old girl who, if she was in the United States, like, she would definitely be wiped up because she was an attractive woman.
Oh, yeah.
But she was definitely, like, she was looking for an au pair position, and she was essentially looking at the group of us and like, anybody want to take me back to the United States with you? So she was saying some off the shit wall. Like, my wife and my buddy's wife were like, oh, she's so great. And we're like, because she's like, oh, I love Marshalls, I love Chipotle.
Chipotle.
I'm like, she is saying all the right things. My wife is down for this. She's about to just scoop this chick up and bring her home with us. And then she's like, what do you guys do here in Iceland? She's like, we drink, we fuck, we get high, we fuck again. She's like, that's about it. We party all the time till 5, 6 in the morning, and then we go do nothing, and then we go back out and party again the next day. And I'm like, what a fucking culture this must be to live in. Like, to visit was one thing because you're running into different people. You don't even, you're going to all these different places. But could you imagine living there for like 30 days or even visiting there for 30 days and going to the same bar? Like, what would be, every night would be a wild story, I feel like. But it's their women are very aggressive there, actually.
Yeah.
We just watched a video of like a woman comes up behind me while we were all singing this song, and like my wife had to like get in there and like box her out. And I was like, hey, what are you gonna do? Like, she thought that this lady's like pets her head. Like, we thought she was like 6'2". I don't know how tall she was because of the angle of the video, but every woman over there is 6 foot tall. It makes me feel short for sure.
They were easy to talk to over there.
I mean, they're probably happy to talk to anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of immigration over there recently. Though.
Yeah.
We talked about that too. We'll see how that affects that country.
How's that girl from, was it Europe? You still talking to her?
Poland?
Poland, yeah.
Kasia. We talk.
Okay.
We talk. We have a place to stay when we want to go to Poland. Like, her family, her family's very wealthy, so like we got a place to stay too when we go back to Iceland.
Maybe she should invest in podcasts.
So.
Austin, what about you? Traveling at all this year?
We're gonna go down to Aruba for spring break, and I don't know what we're doing in the summer.
Yeah.
Someone was talking about going up to Maine, going to
Yeah.
the coast, and I've never been up there. I'd like to go.
It's clean.
Yeah.
It's clean. I remember.
Good lobster right there.
Yeah.
Got that tattoo in Maine.
Yeah. When people ask me if I hear people talk about Maine, I'm like, the only two things that like stuck out to me was, one, billboards are illegal. So there's no billboards on the side of the highway.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's just an interesting fact because fines start at like, I think $5,000 if you have like seaweed and stuff on your boat or you litter. And then lobster. There's lobster shacks everywhere. You can walk in and get a $4 for a pound of size lobster, or 3 to 4, whatever it was, which was kind of cool. And you can just bring it home with you too on the plane. They'll box it up, make sure you bring it home. Like, first time I was out there, I flew back to Ohio with like 6 lobsters, like 25 crabs, and like never cooked it. First time I ever cooked one was while I was there. So I had all my buddies over and we're like in the kitchen, like trying to fry up a bunch of. It was a disaster, but it was good.
No, so Good Lobster, like in the Midwest, has a plane ticket.
Yeah.
Like lobsters that they can ship are ones that are like old and they haven't molted recently. Like, the thicker their shell, the better they travel, and also the worse they taste.
Really?
So if a lobster's like molted its shell recently, I think they're like sweeter. And like,
makes
you
sense.
go place and you eat lobster and you're like, oh, this is delicious. And you eat it here and you're like, this tastes like trash.
Yeah.
So
Been
that
doing
may
a
be
lot of research
worthwhile.
on lobster recently.
No, because it's like, I'm always like, oh, let's eat our seafood. Unless it's like perch or walleye. We live in Ohio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not getting, whatever fancy swordfish. I don't think there's any of those within like 1,000 miles of here.
Yeah, we talk about that same thing because like Red Lobster.
Yeah.
No, thank you. All you can eat crab legs though, big fan of. But
But
we
I think
go
those freeze up well.
Yeah.
yeah. But at the same point in time too, it comes into how it's cooked and everything and prepared, and like there's something about the snap of a good fresh crab leg versus the one that's been sitting in water for 3 hours during the all-you-can-eat fest. It's not the same.
Yeah.
We might be able to find some crab down in Louisiana in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else you got to add tonight, man? Is there anything that you want to bring up or anything that was on your mind?
No. I mean, that's kind of the stuff that we were talking about before. We touched on everything there.
Well, I appreciate you coming on just to talk about some of this stuff because there's some people. We actually were hoping to have a guest on that had a lot of questions, but I think we got to most of them.
Yeah.
But we'll have to have you on with Hans.
We'll get Chris on and we'll get a complete rundown of Canada.
Oh, that'd be a good one. We could just talk shit the whole time. Is he like born in Canada, raised in Canada, or
Born in Canada, and I think he moved here before he was 10.
okay?
But then green card resident alien the whole time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Holy shit. All right. Well, yeah, we definitely have him on. Or if we can get Hans back on, we can just hear about those stories. We heard about you being a 150-pound kid that was awkward at his shop. Did you listen to that? He talked about you for a while.
No.
Oh, he's like, there's actually a great point on there. He's like, you got to have Austin on here at the same time as me. He's like, because I know some shit. He's like, oh, yeah? He's like, yeah, I know. I know some stories. They should be shared.
Yes, he and I both got into all sorts of. So the other day I was in, and because he does that open shop night every Thursday,
Yeah.
and it was his birthday, and I'm like, you realize that I'm as old as you were when I started working for you today?
Wow.
And he's like, I don't want to hear that. Because he was like in his 40s and I was in my 20s.
Yeah.
And I think it was a little bit of like second wind hanging out with a 20-year-old.
Yeah, of course. Especially him. He doesn't want it. He's not ready to be old.
No. But yeah, like immediately he and I were, because I mean, when he was younger, he was a maniac.
Dude, he sounds like it. I mean, but how could you not be? And his stories are great. We try to get him to really cut loose, but I feel like there's a lot more left in the tank on that one.
I think so.
I think what we're going to do, we were talking about it, we're trying to get the Bearded Butchers involved in our podcast.
Okay.
From Creston. I don't know if you're familiar with them or not.
Yeah, the Kevin.
Okay.
When he brings all the like meat and wings and stuff to those trips, it's all from those guys.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, well, maybe I'll have to reach out to Kevin, see if he can get his connection. But we want to do an event where we have like all the people that have been on so far or whatever, and we just want to like cook a whole bunch of random meat that they have up there. Like I want to get as weird as possible. Like they've got kangaroo and stuff like that in there.
Really?
But I was like, we would get some beef tongue, get some fucking, make somebody eat some fucking bull balls or something. Just a fucking good time. But I've never had bison brisket. That's what made us think of it. Is they had bison brisket up there, and I was like,
Yeah.
be interesting. So.
Do they? So out of everything I've ever had, like elk meat, like I'm not a big fan of like venison at all. But when we were in Montana, at elk, and I'm like, this tastes like what beef used to taste like.
Yeah.
And if they have it, I'm making a beeline down there. It's tough to find.
Yeah, it's so expensive.
Yeah.
Obviously I would expect it to be expensive here in Ohio. But when I was in Oregon, I was like, dude, I'm going to get fucking elk. I'm going to bring back something. And I wanted to have a couple steaks. And like a fillet is like $55, $60 to buy and cook yourself.
Yeah.
Not even, I mean, if you go into the restaurants, you were in Montana and stuff like that, get a steak from a restaurant, you're going to pay almost $100 for it.
Yeah.
I mean, part of that's tourism, but part of it's just the crazy price of elk.
Supposedly they're raising a whole bunch of them in Pennsylvania. I'm
Really?
like, maybe I'll get like a couple of those fuckers and put them out behind the house.
Like put a friggin' big little invisible fence thing on them, just make them stay in the yard. It's really fucking good. It's definitely good. I wish there was a cheaper way, a more affordable way to get it. Just drop something.
Phone, whatever.
Okay. All right. Well, let's call it a night. I appreciate you coming on again, man. Hopefully you had a good time, and we'll definitely do this again.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Thanks.
Hi, guys.